To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Davis, we have Pastor Steve Davis here from, I think it's Bethlehem Baptist Church. And if you don't know, he's the one that ministers to our police chief. So welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Let us pray together. Father, we know this evening, even as we live in a world that's filled with turmoil, you can be a God of peace. You can be a God of hope. You can be a God that can bring us together. And so tonight, dear Father, we ask that you bring us together as this town board meets. We pray that you'll give wisdom to those who lead us. We pray, Father, that you'll give understanding and direction as we contribute and are a part of things. We pray, Father, that you'll bless those who seek to be our servants, to walk among us, to help us and to lead us and to work with us. We pray, Father, that you'll be a part of all that will be done, and we'll thank you for it. For we ask it in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Reverend Davis, for coming out tonight. Appreciate that. Okay, next item. I think we got a few proclamations here. It's a couple of them I do want to read, especially ones that has direct for our staff. And the first one is Police Officers Memorial Day and National Police Memorial Week. So this proclamation, Town of Rolesville National Police Appreciation Week, which is May 11th through May 17th, 2022. Whereas in 1963, the Congress and the President of the United States has designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week is which May 15th falls on is National Police Week. And whereas there is approximately 9,000 law enforcement officers serving across the United States, including dedicated members of the Town of Rolesville Police Department, and whereas members of the Rolesville Police Department play a central role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our community, and whereas it's important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, sacrifices of their officers, agencies, and officers of the Town of Rolesville recognize the duties to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement of the Town of Rolesville increasingly provide a vital public service by their faithful and loyal devotion to the responsibilities, have rendered and dedicated service to the community, and in doing so have established for themselves an inviolable, enduring reputation of preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Now, therefore, the Town of Rolesville Board of Commissioners proclaimed the week of May 11th through May 17th, 2022 as Police Week, and calls upon all citizens of Rolesville and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe May 15, 2022 as Police Officers Memorial Day, in which people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in the performance of their duty. Thank you, Chief. Thank to all our men and women that serve the Town of Rolesville, and give them our appreciation for us, if you don't mind. Thank you. Appreciate that. The next proclamation, proclamation of the Town of Rolesville, whereas the office of professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of the government existing throughout the world, and whereas the office of professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens and local government bodies and agencies of the government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to ever meaningful of their naturality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerk continues to strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of the state, provincial, and county and international professional organizations. Whereas it's most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of Professional Clerk and Robin Payton, Clerk of the Town of Rolesville. Whereas I, Ronnie Kern, Mayor of the Town of Rolesville, proclaim with the Town Rolesville Board of Commissioners to hereby proclaim May 1 through 7th as Professional Municipal Clerk Week. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, police officers and clerks. Appreciate that. Great job. We do have a proclamation. I won't read this one for recognizing our Triangle Small Business Week, which is if I have a date on that. I'm not sure I have a date on that one. But that's in May. And also proclamation Town of Rolesville National Public Works Week, which is May 15th through 21st. And, you know, maybe it'd be appropriate to read this one too. Whereas the public works professionals focus on infrastructural facilities and services that are vital importance to the sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-beings of the residents of the Town of Rolesville. And whereas the infrastructural facilities services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are managers and employees at all levels of government and private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas, in the public interest of the citizens, civic leaders, children, and the Town of Rolesville to gain knowledge of and maintain ongoing interest in understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas year of 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, let me proclaim that the Town of Rolesville Board of Commissioners do hereby designate the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week, and urges all citizens to join in with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, ceremonies designated to pay tribute to our public work professionals, managers, employees, and recognize the essential contributions they make into protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you. And JG, is that still your organization, Public Works? So thank them for us on behalf of the board. I don't think any of them are here, right? Did I know? So if you would, thank them. And we just really appreciate all our employees that work for the Town of Rolesville. We mentioned, you know, 3 distinct groups: our clerk, our police department, our public works, but there's others too. And just want to, you know, express special thanks to that. So thanks to everybody for that. Appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys do. You guys do a lot. Appreciate that. Okay, review of the agenda by the board, and any additions would you like to make? If not, I would entertain a motion for the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anybody opposed? Don't hear any. The liaison reports. First, Commissioner Vilga, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Anything you'd like to report?
We met on April 28th. The group discussed the farm entrance and options they would have with that. Also had a presentation from a scout from Troop 141 regarding building helmet racks for fields A and B. That's going to be his project, and the group asked that he move forward with that. And just also received general updates with Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Commissioner Sutton, Economic Development. Anything to report?
Just a little bit. Couple things. Mainly, I got the opportunity, along with a few of the other commissioners, to attend the City Vision Conference in Wilmington last week. Really good conference. I don't have anything to compare it to, so it was great to me. Others who have been said that it was a little vendor light, but there were lots of municipalities there represented, and Wilmington has done some phenomenal things with their city. I just want to highlight a couple of things that I heard. It was a great connection, like I said, with different officials from across the state. Not a lot of vendors, but a few. Some of them may be contacting our staff because they asked me about our needs, so if you hear from them, that's why. There was one session that a lot of us wanted to attend, apparently, on affordable housing. And that session filled up so much so that the fire marshal said no one else could go into the session. So that just shows you that there is a serious need. There's a challenge around affordable housing, not only in the county, but in the state, and we know in our nation, but obviously in Rolesville as well. But I know there were other board members that did have the opportunity to attend that, so maybe someone can share their insights that they were able to get. One session I did attend, which was really interesting, though, is called 10 Critical Elements That Will Make Tomorrow's Communities. And there were, I'm not going to obviously name all 10 of these elements, but I just want to highlight 3 things that I heard that really stood out to me. And one of them was a big focus on the demographic change. We've all heard this over and over, talking about the graying, as he called it, or older Americans, and a more diverse community. You know, they named a generation that I hadn't heard about. Who's ever heard of the Alpha generation? That's the generation after Z. So there's X, there's Y, there's Z, and now there's Alpha. So I learned that. And then this was something that stood out to me too, that the largest group will be single-person households in the future, where it's just one person living in a home. I wouldn't have guessed that, but that is moving towards that as well. And then we just need to think about generational planning, values versus needs and aspirations. He mentioned specifically 20th versus 21st century thinking. And the life expectancy is will increase to 82, almost 83 years of age by 2050. I thought that was quite interesting. And then they talked a lot about placemaking. That's what we've been focused on in the developing Rolesville. Talked about placemaking and mental health. That green space for people helped folks during the pandemic. A lot of parks were developed after that. And the same thing now that we're coming out of this pandemic, how important that is to pay attention to. And I want to emphasize the guy who spoke on that session was Mitchell Silver. And he is now a principal VP for urban planning with McAdams. We do a lot of work with McAdams. This guy was phenomenal. I would love to hear him come and present before our board because he had a lot of things to share, and we are working on a lot of those things. So it was a great, great session. And then I just want to highlight one other thing that is going on economically as far as Rolesville. The Downtown Development Association, or DDA as I call them affectionately, a small group of us did get the opportunity last month to visit the loading dock in Wake Forest. That's a great facility if you all haven't seen it. It's about 24,000 square feet with 3,000 square feet of office, innovation, and co-working space. It's an interesting component, but they took an old building and they restored it to this kind of phenomenal area. So I just want us to be mindful, and I would invite the board members to go and visit it. You know, I like field trips. Go visit the center if you haven't already, especially as we think about our community center and what we want to do. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Medley, Planning Board.
Okay, so, try to get this right here. So at our last planning board meeting, there were 2 cases that were heard. I did sit in for the one in the old Pine Glow building, and they have a lot of great plans for what they want to do with that building, even in terms of the name, although it's not definitive yet, but they do have a nice name to pay homage to Pine Glow for being here for so many years. The planning board approved them to move on to next steps, so we'll be seeing them soon and be ready to take notes. I was excited to hear what they had to offer. The next case was involving Elizabeth Springs, so of course I was asked to leave because that was a quasi-judicial case. So I didn't get to hear, but we'll hear soon enough. Secondly, to continue on where Sheila dropped off at in terms of the affordable housing conversations that took place at the convention last week, they were very interesting. I really think that there are 2 contacts that I do have for you, Kelly, and you as well, or any other board members. Apex and Durham definitely have great ideas on what they have done with their own properties in Durham for affordable housing. I think really we should have a really good conversation with them on how they did it. I personally think that we're able to do some of what they have done. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy for them, but they definitely did something. Even with some prime properties, they were able to make it happen. So I will share that information with you after the meeting or tomorrow, Kelly. And there were also 3 books that they mentioned at the meeting that I did share with, I think, Sheila and Kelly. I'm just going to tell you real quick. It helped Apex especially learn how to deal with and understand affordable housing, because there really is no actual definition on how to define affordable housing. So the 3 books that they had suggested, one was called The Color of Money, another one was Stuck in Place, and the other one was called Evicted. I have not read either of them yet. I have not ordered them yet, but I do plan on doing so. Again, my take from that conversation was really trying to define something that hasn't been defined. So I don't know, I guess we have to try to figure out how to, not necessarily define it, but to how to work with that. There was one other thing that I should have written down and I didn't. Also, there was another lady there who spoke about personalities. And I think of the 4 of us that were there, were we all in the same? No, Sheila was in a different group. And I'm not, and Dan, April, and I were in the same group.
Which one?
The one who talked about the personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she is located in Raleigh, and I had a conversation with her. She said to respond to her, and she will give us a copy of the, I don't know, it's not an, what was that form we had to fill out to help define us? Was that what it was? It was enlightening. It was definitely funny. I think it's something that the town may want to try to do, just with the form by itself. But to have her as a guest speaker, I was already told by another person that I met that whenever she speaks at any event that she attends, she always listens to her because she's so engaging. And she really and truly was. So I will pass along that information to you as well, Kelly. It's been a busy week recovering from that trip. And just take a look at it. It definitely tells you a lot about yourself. I think we all related to a lot of the things that kind of defined our traits. So, but other than that, I've been to these before. I did like this one. I can't say I disliked it, but definitely there weren't as many vendors. But it was still informative, the classes that were made available to us, the sessions that were available to us. So, and we learned, again, we did learn a lot about the different, what different towns are doing, how they're making things work for them. And, you know, every town is unique, as is Rolesville. And hopefully we can turn our uniqueness into something really great. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Commissioner. Commissioner Sneed, Public Safety.
Okay. I met with the fire department. We had our public safety meeting on March 11th. Wait a minute. I think I got the wrong meeting. April 11th. That's the fire department meeting that we had. Okay. That meeting was short and sweet. We talked about how they welcomed Landon Hubble, who's a volunteer. He was a volunteer fire department firefighter. Then he went on to the military. Then he put himself through the academy, and now he is a Rolesville Fire Department employee. So we were excited to meet him. They talked about the inventory they have and their volunteers, that they have 2 new volunteers. 4 of their volunteers are going to the rookie school in August. And let's just send up a prayer for them because it's hot in August. As of right now, the Rolesville Fire Department is fully staffed. So also on the note of the fire department, we are still talking about the unification. We're in the process of moving through that. We have committees that are working on that. So we're hoping to move forward rather quickly with that. And I want to switch gears and touch on the City Vision conference as well. I am one that did attend, and it was my first year. And there were great with my first year. Of course, I have nothing to compare it to either, but I thought the sessions were very, very informative. I made a lot of great connections while I was there. I did attend the 10 critical elements that Sheila spoke about. And then I also popped into 2 different meetings on the ARPA funds. And they talked about how we as a town have to tell our story of why we're using the monies the way that we're using them, and how that they will benefit the town, so that we are transparent with what we're doing, and so that all of our residents understand what the money that was given to our town is being used for and how it's to further our growth as a town. I think that's very important. And I also did attend the session that Michelle was talking about, the effectively addressing the affordable housing needs. And one definition that one person gave of affordable housing was a way to get everyone in a community who wants to live there and a way for them to live there. I think that's broad and it's general, and it gives a good starting point to what affordable housing does really mean. In that session, there were concerns with neighborhoods being sold to investors. And that's something that I heard in multiple sessions that I went to, that entire neighborhoods are being sold to investors, which is hindering people from having homes to live in. So that's a big problem that's not only being seen here in North Carolina, but across the United States. And that's something that they encouraged discouraging for investors to purchase entire neighborhoods. They talked about the maximum density on land, and for towns to inventory that density and to go ahead and take another look at how it's zoned, and the maximum amount of housing that could be put on the available land that we have, and take a look and see how that would affect our traffic. So they talked about things that we as a board have been talking about, that we would like to see and that we're working towards for Rolesville to make sure that we're growing the town responsibly. I believe that's my notes so far, and if I've missed anything, if I remember it, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Commissioner Neat. Good, nice report there. Thank you. Commissioner Austin, veterans, anything there?
Yes, sir. First of all, good evening, everyone. May 3rd, 2022, Veterans Report as follows. First of all, Governor Roy Cooper ordered all North Carolina flags at the state facilities to be lowered to sunrise until sunset on Monday, May 2nd, in honor of Specialist Luis Herrera, the 23-year-old soldier who died Thursday during a vehicle accident in Cumberland County. April 6, 2022 at 11:30 was the meeting with the Wait Med VP and Administrator for North Hospital, Ms. Valerie Barlow, Sean Brink, Vice President of Wait Med Physician Practices, myself, Commissioner Sutton, and Michael McFarland attended the meeting as well. And the meeting went very well. The leaders of Wait Med will reach out to us on their decision. They said to give them time. And then on April 25th, 2020, at 1:30 p.m., there was a Veterans Memorial Visioning meeting with CPL Architecture Engineering Planning Team to discuss the concepts for the Veterans Memorial in Cobblestone. That was a very good meeting. I had the pleasure while I was on vacation to take pictures of different Veterans Memorial to kind of get them a couple of ideas and way that I think that it's going to actually come together pretty good. So I look forward to our second meeting. And then City Vision was awesome. I coordinated with some of the leaders for the North Carolina League of Municipalities with the concept of bringing a recruiting office / vet center to the Walbrook location. They love the idea and would like to work with me to see if we can make that happen, because I told them that I'm not going to quit, that they're going to keep seeing my ugly face until it happens. Mr. Mayor, they will complete my report.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Dan. Good report. It's exciting to hear things going on around veterans and all the other stuff the commissioners talk about.
A lot going on, sir.
I think it was a couple times mentioned about affordable housing. I will report, I did meet with Londa Winstead. I'm not sure if y'all know her or not, but she's the president of DHIC, which is a organization that really originated in Wake County that actually builds and also manage housing, multifamily related communities, and surprisingly, senior citizens rental communities, which, I think that's one of the things that we kind of lost focus on a little bit, because really, I think there's an urgent need for us to have that too. So, so I'm just looking at, brochure, they manage at least 15 senior citizens communities in Wake County, and probably 2025 multifamily rental communities in Wake County. I think one of the largest ones is 162 units, I think. So very interesting. The organization been in place since 1974, I believe. It was started in Wake County. It's a nonprofit that builds communities and actually provide affordable housing. They call theirs is what they do is the organization is dedicated to transforming communities by creating high-quality affordable housing, which is a little
A big difference.
different thing. And she said they target affordable housing. We talked about this in the workshop. It has to do with the income, and she said that they target anywhere from 30% to 60% below the medium line, I guess you call it. And in fact, some of the communities have a combination. They have units designated to all of those perspectives. May have some units that's down in the 30s and some in the 60s or something.
Sir.
So, it's not all one type.
Sir, is that similar to the senior living and
I
Granite
think it
Falls?
is. I think it is. I think it's a different organization that owns that. I was looking through the brochure. They own a facility in Wake Forest, a senior citizen called Turnberry. I don't know if you heard of Turnberry or not.
They're not owned by an organization
It's
like
on
that?
White Street.
Yeah, they're not owned by an organization like that, the home back there, but they do housing based on,
Yeah.
income.
Income.
So, I think I asked Kelly. Kelly's reached out to her by email, and we might get her in here to talk to us, about what they can offer, and you may know her. She appeared, to show NC Impact that we were on. She was on there.
I saw it.
Yeah, she was on there talking about affordable housing and that kind of thing.
I reached out to her too, so.
You did? Okay, so you know her, Ms. Winstead. Great. So it was a good,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a good meeting. So I think we'll continue to kind of, it sounds like there's a lot of interest on this board, so we'll continue, down that path.
Mayor,
I just
had-
don't think we should, I'm sorry.
I just had one more thing that I forgot to mention, and it'll be over by the time we meet again. It is also Small Business Week this week, so please support a small business. And thinking of a small business, Thorn to Rose Foundation is a mental health organization or foundation. They have a 5K coming up. I'm going to try to run. I'm going to try. I'm not a runner, but I'm going to try. Fast walk. It is on May 14th. It's going to be right here in Rolesville from 9 a.m. to 12, and we meet at Main Street Park. If you will go online, Thorn to Rose, it's spelled THORNETOROSE.org. So Thorn with an E at the end to rose.org. It's only $30. Support this organization. What they do is they are helping minority communities with mental health counseling. So that foundation is helping to make sure that is happening. And I say everybody in this nation needs some mental health counseling for free after the pandemic, right? But support, this is happening right here in Rolesville in May 14th, so 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
And there's going to be some vendors there as well.
And vendors will be there, I hear. Thanks, Michelle.
Appreciate you mentioning that. And it's a pretty new organization. I think they've been maybe less than a
Last
year,
year.
or right at a year or so. Put a lot of volunteer work in that, and it's a good organization. So if you don't run, I think you can walk.
Yep.
If you can't walk, you can sponsor. so it's several ways you can contribute to it. So it's a real good organization. Did
Definitely.
you want to
Thank
mention
you.
anything?
Okay, I should have wrote it down, so I'm sorry.
That's all right. Write it down.
Yeah, I'll write it down next time. It's going to come out eventually.
forgot.
All right, so
Sorry.
while you're thinking, we're going to call Amy up. Amy is our communication to the town from staff tonight. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Amy.
On, better? Better? Okay, good. Just a brief update tonight on the financial condition of the town, as well as a few things going on in the finance department. So it's the 3rd of May. We are still working on the bank statements for April. So when I give you this report, it's based on the end of March. So that's the FYI and packet that was in your previous agenda packet, but that's what this information is based off of. So when it comes to property tax, which is the largest source of revenue, we have, at that point, we had collected 104% of the budgeted amount. So that's really good news. Most of the property tax is in. Particularly good news because most property tax does not get collected after January. We're pretty much done by January, so that's a good sign.
Amy, do we know the percentage, not the amount, but the percentage of the actual collection percentage of
From what's levied versus,
or not what's levied, but the, household? Or is it 90% of the household has paid, or?
right, so the 104% is of what we had budgeted last year. But in terms of what the levy is, like how much was billed and what we've received, it's right there, probably, I would say about 98, 99%.
Good.
Your second largest source of revenue is sales tax. We've talked several times over the last few months because of the new census numbers, and that affected our distribution. Because we had a higher population, we ended up getting a greater distribution than we have. So as of March 31st, we were at 81% of what was budgeted, which is good news because those revenues run 3 months behind. So we're really looking good for that one for the year. I will mention, and we talked about this when I first brought it up, we have very few data points to go by on that. And we did find that the January sales, right, so the money we just received in March, the January sales were down a little bit. Not necessarily year over year, but in terms of the amount of money we received, it was a little bit less than what we had been getting. January sales statewide were down. So whether that was, some hangover from Christmas spending, or whether that's the end of the pandemic and people traveling more outside of their home area, maybe going on vacations more and spending money in other places, or if it was just a one-time blip. We'll keep monitoring that and see where things go. Nothing for concern. We still look good for that revenue for the year, but I did want to mention there's a little bit of a downturn with that January receipt. On the expenditure side, at the end of March, that's 9 months into the fiscal years, or 75% of the way through the budget. Our departments were all spending where they were expected. Some were a little bit over the mark due to some large one-time expenditures, so nothing unexpected. Good news there. Everyone is maintaining good budget discipline. A couple of the other items I just wanted to mention, Commissioner Steed mentioned the ARPA funds. Been attending some ARPA training this past few months to make sure that we have everything in line so that we can adopt the right policies and make sure we document how we spend those funds appropriately as we go through that process. Other thing we've been working on, and we've mentioned before too, is the USDA loan. That's that loan for the sewer bonds. I think it was 1990, 91, something like that. They've been out there a long time. 5.5% interest rate. So the town owns the loan, and when the water sewer merger happened, Raleigh reimburses the town for those annual payments. Well, we've had some conversation with the city of Raleigh. They have agreed that given the interest rate on that loan and the small amount of principal that's remaining, we're going to pay that off. So that was a budget amendment you all passed, I believe, last month. So in the next few weeks, we'll get that paid off. It's a savings, not just for Rolesville residents, but for all Raleigh water customers. And then finally, just a little note, we're looking forward. We're getting towards the end of the fiscal year, and that's the time where we start implementing a new accounting standard, or GASB standard, for the financial statement. So we're working with a new software there and working on that learning curve too. So that's all I've got. If you have questions, you'll hear more from me later tonight. So if you miss them now, you can do it later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, now we're at the section of public is invited to be heard. And I will say, if you're here to speak on the evidentiary hearing, or if you're here to speak at the public hearing for the budget or something, kind of hold your thoughts to those times. This is a general public to be heard section. So, so just remind everybody, you get 3 minutes. And Dick, I think, did you want to speak at this time?
I can speak, yes.
Okay, come on up. State your name, full name, address, and for the record.
I'm Dick Armont, 111 Alley Bell Lane. I've been in town since 2007, and I am on the Park and Recs Planning Board, and we're having an awful hard time keeping up with the sports people, with all the new people coming to town. We know we're going to get a lot more kids and younger people in the town. We need to get our parks and recs up to speed. The farm has been out there for many years and nothing has been done with it. We need to get that money appropriated so that we can get that done. We need to get all that done because it's a big deal. And if the people see that we got enough parks and stuff, Main Street Park is a disaster because it gets too much use. We need another area so that people can go to. And that's all I've got for right now.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate that. That's the only one signed up. Anybody want to speak? Come on up, George. I see you got your hand up. You got something you want to say to us? State, I know where you live, but state your name and where you live for the record, if you don't mind.
My name is George Garcia. I live at 524 Averett Road. It's a good thing that you all are doing a comprehensive traffic planning study, which is great. But one thing that I haven't seen is a monitoring plan for the emissions associated with all the traffic that you're going to have, either present and the future. I don't know if you all followed up or not, but NIH and the government, federal government, CDC has said that possibly a lot of pulmonary infirmities or diseases are going to be associated with emissions. All those cars that you have around here are going to have PM 2.5, PM 2.10, NOx and SOx emissions, and other hazardous emissions coming out of the tailpipe. You have 2 elementary schools a mile and a half from here, 1 middle school, 2 charter schools, and 2 daycare centers right close by that I know of, in addition to all the older folks that live around here now. So the point I'm trying to make here is, with all the subdivisions going on, there's been a lot of trees cut down, quite a bit, and a lot of additional traffic, and maybe the state needs to be contacted. They can put some temporary monitoring sites and define the level of emissions that you're going to have and what kind of impact it's going to have on people. There's a certain amount of dispersion that happens during the daytime for all those emissions, but like children, they're more susceptible to stuff like that, okay? And people are moving here for the quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Some good points there. Thanks a lot. Okay, next item is the consent agenda. 2 items on there, the minutes from April 5th, and also audit contract approval. Any questions, or if not, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, I know I got a second. Who did I get the second from there?
I said second, but
Okay.
not sure.
So motion second. Is any other discussion? Not hearing it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Appreciate that, board. Okay. Now let's get into the meat of the meeting, board actions. First action we have is to continue our evidentiary hearing. It's a special use permit 21-01, Fulton Wake Avenue subdivision. Kind of recap that for the board here. We met a month ago, called the case to order. We actually took all the witnesses, so we went through the hearing from my recollection. We heard evidence from both the applicant and the opponents. And I think at the time we tabled, and I will entertain any comments from staff, any changes or any updates from the staff. And I guess, Madam Clerk, if you would, I know you have to swear Mike in because he hadn't been sworn in. If it's anybody, and I don't think I'm going to take any more evidence. I think we'll just take the staff report from Mike. But if you guys have some questions, I will allow that. So some of the expert witnesses may get asked a question. I would say maybe if you got expert witness here that may get asked a question, go ahead and get sworn in case it comes up and to save us a little time. So if you would do that. So Madam Clerk, would you get everybody swearing in that's going to, well, if you got swearing in last time, you don't need to. So if you, right?
Already sworn in.
So if you, I don't know, if you wasn't here last time and didn't get swearing in, we'll take you now. Looks like everybody sat down. So we ought to be good to go with Mike wasn't here, so.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
All right, thank you. One other thing before we get into the comments from the staff. I'm going to ask the attorney. I know last time we had procedural statements and everybody on the board went through that process. So I'm going to ask the attorney, is it anything from a procedural statement standpoint you want to recap or do?
No, Mr. Mayor. If there are any board members who have had a change in circumstance over the past month that might possibly constitute a conflict of interest, this would be an excellent time to disclose that. But otherwise, we don't need to go through that again.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Now we're ready. So I'll turn it over to you to give us an update on staff report.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. My name is Mike Elleberger. I'm senior planner here for Meredith Gruber this evening. This is a continuation of the agenda item and a public hearing for the special use permit amendment known as Pulte Waite Avenue. Since the last meeting, the applicant has provided revised conditions of approval, which were detailed in your staff memo. On this slide here, I'm just going to do a very high-level summary of them. Conditions 1, 3, and 5, just some slight word modifications to them were made. Condition number 2 removed the statement, basically, all residential could develop prior to any non-residential. So that wording is no longer there. Condition 6 is a new condition speaking to a commercial commitment, stating basically prior to any phase 2 certificates of occupancy for residences, utilities would be extended to the commercial area, and the developer would either build or bond the traffic impact analysis required improvements for Averett Road. Condition 7 is a new. This is stating to provide 2 residential affordable housing units per the specifics that are housed in that condition. Number 8 was revised to reduce the number of deviation requests from 4 to 3. The request about the townhome building separation, limiting that or keeping that to a 20-foot standard was removed. The other 3 are summarized here, would remain as they were originally proposed.
Can I just do a listening check? Can you hear him? I'm just wondering if the public can hear you because
Speak up louder?
you're really
Okay.
low.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay.
Tap on it.
Seems like it's the mic though, because I'm not close to the mic. I have a big mouth, one of the two.
I have a question, sir, before you go to the next slide.
Sure.
Condition number 7, the new, okay, do you have any more information about the affordable housing? Is there a certain price it's starting out at? that you know of?
I would defer to the applicant to
Okay.
perhaps further explain. The only information that was presented is what is couched in that attachment that you have. The staff report has both a red line version and a clean version of
Clean
the
version,
proposed
okay.
conditions to read there. There are a number of specifics that explain the intention for this for these 2 affordable dwelling units there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure. Just quickly, being a quasi-judicial hearing, there are findings of facts that the applicant must demonstrate they have met compliance for, and that would be part of the board's approval process as well. Other than that, I'm happy to run through the last month's presentation, but if you'd just like to have the applicant come up and maybe respond to some questions, we can just move to that.
I would like to go through number 8.
Okay.
Conditions.
From here, or you want a question to someone, or?
I want to hear the version that we heard last month again, just to be sure that I'm on the same page with condition number 8, with the 3 deviations, the setback encroachments, the driveway parking, and the 20-foot separation I'm okay with. And part of that is, I do want to know what is meant by regardless of lot width. So I forgot.
If I may, I prepared a few slides to
Okay.
detail these a little further, if you allow me to go to those. And again, the applicant may wish to offer some feedback on this as well. Here we go. So call this the first deviation. The request is for front facades. At the bottom is their stated condition request for the deviation. Front facades, covered porches, and balconies of single-family detached and townhomes may encroach up to 5 feet into a front setback. So in the Unified Development Ordinance, there is no provision to allow any form of encroachment into a front setback. So this is a complete request or ask, not to modify an existing standard, but to create a standard solely for this project. So right now, no front facade, porch, or balcony of any single-family or townhome unit could encroach into a setback per the UDO. So this is asking to allow up to a 5-foot encroachment for any particular single-family detached or townhome building.
Is that different under, you said it under the UDO,
That's
correct? But under the LDO, has that been addressed?
I do not have the LDO data in front of me to compare.
Okay. I was just curious if we had
And
updated it.
This project is fully regulated under the UDO
Under
due
the
to its
UDO, I
timing of
gotcha.
development, yes.
Okay, I was just curious.
Okay. I'll move to the second. Again, at the bottom is their stated request. Front-facing single-door garages shall be permitted regardless of lot width. Garages may protrude up to 5 feet beyond the front building line of residences. So in UDO section 6.2.1.3, the design standards, I've highlighted the 2 sections that are sought to be modified. Number 2 there reads, for dwelling units not served by rear alleys, garages are to be to the side or rear of the dwellings. Garages to the side shall not protrude beyond the front building line of the residence. So what they're asking for is to allow a protrudence of the garage forward of that front wall plane of the home, and also when they are to the side or the rear of a dwelling. So not served by an alley. And then 3, highlighted in blue there, says 2-car garages visible from the street are to be designed with 2 single doors. And I understand the request to be allowing them to not have 2 single doors, to have one, if you want to call it a double wide door, that is front facing to the street. So it's.
That's the request.
Yes, the request is to
Right.
modify both number 2 and 3, highlighted in
Gotcha.
green and blue, to allow them to develop a residence per their request. So it's modifying 2 sections. And then the third deviation, the request is stated as parking shall be permitted in driveways in the front of the residences. And UDO section 6.2.1.2, lowercase f, in that second sentence there, highlighted in green, for lots with frontages equal to or smaller than 60 feet, parking shall be to the side or rear, accessed by alleys where topography allows. So I believe the developer seeks to have the freedom, if they plat lots that are less than 60 feet frontage or 60 feet in width, to still permit driveways in the front of the residence.
Do you have a picture of that?
I do not, none were
can't
submitted.
I don't know what I'm looking at when it's phrased, when it's written that way.
There were no graphics submitted with the conditions.
That doesn't help.
And just for, to close, the one deviation that was removed from the applicant, it dealt with UDO section 8.3.2. And this is the table regarding the minimum separation distance between townhome buildings, which is actually derived from their proposed height. And you can see there's kind of 4 classes. So depends on how high or how tall the building would be, drives the separation distance between any 2 buildings. So the taller the building, the larger the separation distance. And the original request was for a 20-foot separation distance across the board, regardless of building height.
So did their height align with this chart?
I'm not aware of any building height that was actually proposed.
That's what I was going to say. I don't remember height either. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So those are the 4 deviations per that condition.
All right, so I still have a question about the lot regardless of the lot width. I mean, I heard you speak on it, but I still don't understand it. In driveways in the front of residences, regardless of lot width.
So the UDO says if your lot widths are narrower than 60 feet, your parking shall be to the side or the rear, accessed by alleys. Whereas they want to basically eliminate or delete that second sentence there and not have the lot width drive where the parking can be.
I just really wish I could see what that looks like.
I
Anybody
think-
give an example of that?
Yeah, she's looking for a visual of this. This means the driveway is in the normal front of the house, right?
The applicant may have some images uploaded here ready to share with you that could better explain their request.
That'll be helpful.
I guess
So I'm wondering
whenever
if
we're ready to have the
If the
applicant.
front of the house is going to look taken over by the vehicles that are parked there because it's a smaller width?
Perhaps if you envision a block of lots that were all the same width and they were all exercising this option, and then imagine that. If the entire block were all lots were under 60 feet. Whereas this standard would preclude that if all the lots on the street were under 50 feet in width.
So is this either or both townhomes and single-family homes? That's where I'm getting confused. You jumped to townhomes.
The language of the condition does not actually specify that. It says in front of residences. The applicant may wish to clarify.
Gotcha.
And that could be a
Okay.
cleanup edit.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Just got one, sir. You mentioned the width being 20 feet. I'm looking on page 29 that number 4 is actually scratched out. So that means, I'm just trying to interpret it that we're going to stick with the LDO and just go 30 feet?
This is all UDO.
No, could you describe where in the staff report you're speaking of?
Yes, on page 29, under proposed conditions, number 8 requests.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 4 is scratched out. It say townhouses should have a minimum building separation of 20 feet, because that's the request.
That
But
was
we
the original request, and that has been removed from there.
So we're going with the 30 feet by the LDO, correct?
The UDO,
Right.
let me get the slide back up. Per this slide here. So when they come in for permitting,
Thank you. They answered.
yeah, based on the proposed height of the building, they will comply. They will
They
comply
answered.
with this.
Thank you. No more.
Okay.
No more
Any
UDOs.
questions from this end?
That's my request. No more UDOs.
Mr. Mayor, just one quick question. Do we have the phasing counts in terms of units that are assigned to Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3?
I think I saw that.
The phasing plan.
I ask because the condition is tied to the completion of phases.
Correct. The phasing plan does not detail numbers of units. And I would believe that's the only place that would be detailed.
So it's by geography?
The applicant seems to have an answer for this one.
Okay, thanks.
Did you get your question answered?
I'm not sure that I did. I think the board will want to know
Yeah, so those.
how many
colors don't have
units are in
numbers
each of
on it.
those phases.
Those colors that don't have numbers on it there?
Per the master plan, if we extrapolate the phasing to the master plan, we may be able to get to that number, but
I was thinking, you know,
the phasing break, as you can see between the green and the purple, is, it looks like on a natural feature. Whereas I'm not 100% sure if the land bays are the same, broken, but the client can address that, provide those unit counts.
no more questions? Okay. I asked the board, like I said, we're not taking any additional evidence, but if you got a question you want to dig into, we'll see if we can get a witness to be able to testify to that. Any question? Any, I guess, unanswered questions? Did you have?
Oh, yeah, I do have a couple of questions. And this was actually brought to my attention today. This can be on anything pertaining to this, right? And it would be the question about the community. Are they required to have another community meeting on this when they made these changes? I hadn't even thought about that. Somebody brought it up today.
Could you ask me the question again?
Okay, so when they went back and made the changes that they've made, especially with the commercial part, was there a requirement to have another community meeting about this, or no?
No. The applicant has suggested additional conditions for your consideration to see whether those would allow the board to be able to make the findings of fact. But at the end of the day, these conditions are entirely the board's decision. They could be these conditions, or they could be ones that you create. Or if the board believes that they simply cannot meet the findings, then the board would vote no. But all of this falls as a quasi-judicial matter before you, rather than being what we might have in a zoning case, where we'd have neighborhood meetings and that sort of thing to have public feedback. As while unfortunate, how much everyone likes it isn't one of your findings of fact.
Okay. Then I have a question about the traffic impact study. And this is actually, if anybody can remember on the board, Kelly, is there a time frame on at what point does that expire?
I believe that there is a professional standard as to how long a traffic study would still be viable. However, I believe that's established by the staff in terms of how the TIA was conducted, as this was conducted with our chosen person, if I'm correct.
So
We could get that clarified by the witness.
I think we do have an expert witness on traffic study. I will say to all your expert witnesses, we're not taking any new evidence, so keep your answers to the commissioner's question. So the question has to do with, I guess, the expiration of a traffic study, kind of?
because we're growing so much, I'm wondering where those numbers are. I mean, I know we spent a lot of time on that the last time you were here, but I'm just a little curious because it does change.
Thank you, Mike, for it now. Thank you.
And I would just throw as a general caution, we don't have any other traffic impact analysis competing evidence. So the only evidence that's before the board right now is the evidence you received at the first hearing. And that evidence, the testimony you heard, was that it does comply with the standard.
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Matt Peach with Stantec Consulting Services, 801 Jones Franklin Road in Raleigh, North Carolina. Happy to be here with you all again this evening to talk more about the project. With regard to the specific question as to whether there's a expiration date on the TIA, there's no hard and fast rule as to when they expire. Usually it would be standard practice if any of the underlying assumptions that were made in the study were to be revised, then we would look for a traffic impact study to be redone, or if the counts were done at a time that we felt was no longer reflective of what's going on today. So in this instance, the study's about a year old. The traffic counts themselves, I could tell you exactly when we took them if you want to get that far into the weeds.
It was in May, right?
Yeah, the study was completed in May. The traffic counts themselves were taken, I'll tell you. So at that time, the traffic counts themselves, we were not going out and collecting new data. So the data that was used in this study was from 2018 and 2017. We were still at a point in the pandemic where folks were not really comfortable with collecting new data.
So wait a second. What year are we in? 2022, correct?
Yes,
Oh my
ma'am.
gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But that's pretty old.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at the time the study was completed, that was standard practice. The standard of practice has changed.
Okay, so
So what's the standard?
If we were to, if this project were to start anew this year, we would go out and collect new data.
all righty. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Mr. Peach, may I ask you one question before you go? Just for my own knowledge.
Of course.
If I can ask this question. So if revisions are done to the resources that you use to do these studies, would a traffic impact analysis be redone?
If there were a, just for a quick example, we account for developments that have been approved. We account for traffic to and from those developments. If there was a substantial development in the vicinity of this one that was not included in the study, that would be another thing that would be, in a perfect world, revised with the study. But again, we're also accounting for background growth in these studies. So it's really it's more of a judgment call. Like I said, there's no hard and fast rule.
I think the resources that I am referring to are the North Carolina DOT resources that are used to do these studies. If those are updated from the time that the study is performed until now, would that traffic impact analysis be redone with the newest resources?
Well, no. In this case, if this were a new development and it were to start now, the NCDOT Congestion Management Unit has introduced new guidelines. They also came out with a best practices document that was issued actually today. We would be incorporating those. However, this was performed in the spring of 2021, and it was submitted and reviewed and agreed upon by NCDOT Congestion Management. So in this case, we would not go back to them again. They've already kind of rendered their recommendations.
Okay. Okay.
Even though it's now 4 and 5 years old since then.
Yes, at the time the study was performed, that was the standard practice. But yes, the data that was used was taken from 2017 and 2018, because folks are still concerned that the ongoing pandemic was impacting the volume seen on the roads.
So to be clear, you're saying that they're saying it's okay that it was 17 and 18 because of COVID, because we're going to complete this study in 2021. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's correct. They felt more comfortable and were requiring at the time us to use pre-pandemic data rather than data collected during the pandemic at that time.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Go ahead.
Go right.
I have two questions. Probably not for you, sir.
Oh, wait a minute.
Thank you.
Before you sit down, let's get some order here. Let's do all the transportation first. So Sheila, did you have something for this week?
Mine is not on traffic,
Okay, any other traffic stuff? Let's make sure.
but I would like to make a comment. I do think 17, 18 is really old.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Not hearing any? You good?
Thank you, sir.
So what was yours related to, Dan?
It was related to condition number 6 about commercial.
Okay, yeah, and I think I would like to hear an answer to the attorney's question has to do with phasing
The
around the
phasing. I heard
commercial
that same
too. So
question.
someone that can provide expert testimony or evidence to that. Step up, state your name, address for the record, please, and your qualifications.
Yep. Matthew Carpenter, 301 Fayetteville Street. So the Phase 1 is at 112 units, and then Phase 2 is 181, for a total of 293.
Can you repeat that? And I'm sorry, I write really slow. and
No,
I'm
no,
writing
that's
this.
okay.
You said Matthew what?
Phase 1.
Phase 1 is 112
Okay.
units, and that's a mix of townhomes and single-family detached. And then Phase 2 is 181, and it comes out to 293.
And that's a mix as well, or?
Right.
What was your name again? Matthew what? I'm sorry.
Carpenter.
Thank you.
So has it changed? Because I've read this document, and when I go back, none of the numbers align with what I'm hearing. I
Have
hear,
the counts changed?
have they changed?
So through the process of filing initially at the end of 2020, and then the final version, I think we reduced the units by 6 or 7, if I remember right. We lost a few lots here and there as we were dealing with environmentally sensitive areas and things like that, so.
Gotcha.
So the 293 is out of how many?
That's the total
That's the total of
for the
whole
whole
development?
project, yeah, 1 and 2.
Okay.
Phase 1 and 2. And then Phase 3 is the commercial.
Gotcha.
So wait, you said 112 and then 293? Did I write that down wrong?
112 and 181.
81.
Oh, no.
293 total.
See, that's why I told you to go slow.
I went too fast, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
So is commercial going to be done first or
So.
in conjunction with?
Yes, so let me I'll pull up our revised condition, which I think helps illustrate it. Let's see. Okay, so here it is. So what we're committing to here is that the utilities, water and sewer, will be stubbed to the commercial portion prior to the issuance of a CO for Phase 2 of the residential. So the commercial portion can be done anytime in Phase 1 or 2 of the residential, but it's required to be done prior to the CO for Phase 2. So the first house that they can sell in Phase 2, they need to have the commercial pad built. And then B is the same commitment for the road improvements along Averitt Road. And so the improvements that would have been required, the TIA broke it down into the residential and then full build out, which included the commercial, and it had 2 lists of recommended improvements. And so what B does here is it takes those improvements for the commercial and moves them up in the phasing to be done at the same time as the residential. So the idea is to put in all the infrastructure needed for the commercial while we're doing the residential. So.
Did you have another question? 'Cause I did. Oh.
So, okay, so if commercial is going to start, it has to start by the first issuance of a CO in Phase 2, correct? Is there a plan for it to be completed, or at that point, are you going to finish up Phase 2 and then do the commercial?
So the infrastructure has to be completed. So the water and sewer has to be there, and the road improvements have to be completed prior to the CO.
Also, no actual commercial.
Well, it could. It's not part of the commitment. It's for the full build out, but it's for the infrastructure.
That ties in. So my question
That's
is,
not helping.
I just wanted to get clarification we did receive a residential market study, and then based on everything we're getting right now, there's no commercial market study being submitted for anything commercial related.
Market study, do you mean from the appraiser?
Yeah, or just in general for that.
No, we don't have updates on that specific report today.
And then also, we're talking about 293 units, and we're talking about offering 2 units for affordable housing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so before I get to the affordable housing part, to be clear again, so chances are there will not be a physical commercial structure set up or built during Phase 1 or 2, just
Well, there's nothing preventing that. We did have some language that said the residential had to be done first, so we removed that. So if the commercial development happens, it can happen during the residential, but we're not committing to that in this condition.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I would need a commitment for that. For me personally, board, to see something happen, because again, as I think Commissioner Sneed stated, and I'm not sure who backed it up, we all saw what happened with Highland, is it Highland Falls? Highland Creek, I'm getting my states mixed up. We saw what happened there. So, me personally, I'm telling the board right now, I would need to see that. And to go back to what Paul stated about the affordable housing, one of the things I noticed with an agency, when they said, when we have developers that come in and agree to construct something within a community, it never looks like the other houses that were there, and that's a problem, and they don't build, or they won't come in and build in an offering made by a developer, like, hey, we have a couple of lots, you can come and build a house. So, and the reason for it was, and I'm paraphrasing it, you can have like this 4,000 or 5,000 square foot house, and then you have an 1,100 square foot house here that was done as a means just to appease a board. So, the houses that you're referring to, the 2 houses out of 293 homes, really doesn't, okay, I'm not trying to get anybody's pocket here, but it doesn't make sense to me to do that. And I know sometimes you say a little bit is better than none, but that's just my opinion. It really doesn't. But what are these houses looking? Are they going to look the same? Are they going to be the same square footage? Price? Do you have a price for it?
I do, yeah. They'll be identical to the other units. And we haven't, decided whether they'll be single-family detached or townhomes. But if you drive out there, you won't be able to tell they're affordable. They'll just be in the neighborhood. And really the only difference is the income of the person that lives there. So you would never know. And this table here gives you an idea of some of the price points at 80% AMI. And I don't know, that might be kind of small. Let's see if I can, I don't know where the magnifying glass is, but so for a 1-bedroom, it's $250,000. 2-bedroom, it's $284,000. And then
Wait,
3-bedroom.
stop, hold on, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Did you say a 1-bedroom for $250,000? That's affordable housing?
So
I'm only asking you, but I'm not
No,
being
that's okay.
critical.
We're,
Although it
so
sounds like I
this
am.
particular commitment is 80% AMI. And so
Okay. Okay.
what that's aiming for is people like, policemen and firemen, that kind of income level. So it's not 30% AMI, which is like what DHIC would be doing.
Right.
It's more of like workforce type housing is the goal.
So you're saying, for an example, a 1-bedroom is $250,000?
It's on the screen.
Yeah, it's based on the AMI numbers.
Okay.
Which
Thank
are
you.
here, so.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so these are the AMI numbers for the Raleigh metro area, which includes Rolesville. And so 80% AMI for a single household is $53,000 a year. And so that's, those sales prices are based on that AMI.
So they would be sold?
Right. And they'd include a restrictive covenant that would restrict a resale would have to be sold to someone else within that same AMI range. And it would be, the way the condition reads is it's 10 years. So the covenant would run for 10 years.
Next and Durham do the same thing, but they resell.
So, and some of the language was borrowed from Apex. They've got a new program there that I've worked with the town on. And so
Apex and Durham both have that program.
some of the language is similar to that.
So,
You still going?
I'm sorry, so you mentioned townhomes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say townhomes, are you referring to a whole unit, a whole strip of townhomes, or just?
Just the building, the unit.
So it could be, wait, I'm sorry, so.
I'm sorry, just the unit. So just one, it would be, if it were
you
all
just committed to
townhomes,
building.
if it were all townhomes, it'd be 2 townhomes that would be affordable.
So if you have 6 townhomes and one, I don't know what you call them at this point, I'm sorry.
Cluster.
If you have, not even a cluster, but if you have 6, a row of 6,
In the same building, yeah.
it would only be 2 out of the 6, not necessarily the 6.
Right. Yeah. Because they'd be individually
I have no
owned.
questions.
So they.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. I think it shows that some time was spent on trying to answer the affordable housing question for us. I appreciate that effort. I would like to see the same effort from the commercial plan, and I don't see that. To me, a commercial plan is not putting in utilities. That's not a plan. That's laying the groundwork for the start of a plan, but I think specifically this board requested a commercial plan. And I would have expected kind of what Paul alluded to earlier, some information about the market. Because I think somebody in your group was talking from I thought was an expert perspective, maybe giving their opinion as an attorney. And so I thought that there would be some expounding on that. And I see nothing except utilities. So that's unfortunate.
So the condition was aimed at, taking all those costs in and putting those on the front end of the project to really attract high-quality commercial, alongside the residential. So that was the.
But you have no plan to attract. So there's no plan to attract.
Can I have Chris speak to that? He's the builder.
Sure. Whoever's the right person.
Chris Raleigh, 1225 Crescent Green Drive.
Is it Raleigh, like the city Raleigh?
It's pronounced the same, spelled different.
It's spelled different. Okay, gotcha.
How do you
Thank
spell
you.
it?
What's that?
How do you spell it?
Raugley.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So,
Just for the record, let us know your credentials again.
sure. My name's Chris Raleigh. I work for Pulte Homes. I'm our Vice President of Land Development and Entitlements. I've been in that role for over 16 years. Prior to that, I worked for a commercial developer. And prior to that, I worked as a professional engineer designing commercial and residential sites. Okay. So with regard to the commercial, you said that you were looking for more of a commitment. And so I want to just tell you what our approach here was. Our approach was to look at what sites are available in the town of Rolesville. And when a commercial, if I can separate a commercial developer, somebody who is equipped to come in and do a massive project, and a commercial user, someone who's equipped to come in and do a piece of that, our approach was to take our skills as residential developers and apply that so that a commercial developer wouldn't be necessary. And so what we're doing is we're limiting ourselves so we can only build our first phase. But what we'll do is we'll ensure that by the time we're done with our first phase, we have all the utilities plus all the transportation improvements improved so that now, instead of this site being marketable to only a commercial developer who can take on the financial burden of extending utilities, putting in major road improvements, plus doing major grading operations, we're taking that burden away so that now the site is completely marketable to all of the individual users who would want to use that site. So we believe what we've just done is we've taken what was probably a very small opportunity or small group of end users, and we've broadened it out to anyone who would want to do that. Because at that stage, all a commercial user would need to do is they would need to file a site plan and they would need to get a building permit. And so you would essentially have a pad-ready site, which is not the case for most commercial property. And so we're making this property highly marketable at that point. Whereas right now, the property is highly unmarketable because it does not have utilities and it does not have the road improvements. And it does have to go through a rezoning in order to get to the stage that we would be at. So we're removing years from the process in our approach that we're taking on this.
So thank you for that. Let me ask you a couple of clarifying questions. This commercial space that you're referring to, is that the 15.38, I'm sorry if my math is off.
Yes, ma'am.
Acres? And was this previously like 36 acres when it was going to be Thales Academy?
I don't remember the exact.
I remember
acreage,
30-something.
but previously it was considerably larger because the school was accounting for, the school is considered one of those commercial uses.
Exactly. So we had 36 acres of commercial previously, if I remember it correctly. I don't know if it's 36, 30-some acres. So we have gone to half that in this new plan. So as I emphasized before, when you all were before us, we're trying to get more commercial in Rolesville.
And I do believe that the approach that we're taking, we will accomplish that.
By shrinking the acreage from 30 to 15?
No, in this case, we're no longer having a school, which
Right.
would be commercial acreage, but is not a commercial, it's a commercial use
I
of a
got you.
school. But the amount of commercial that was going to be used for doctor's offices, storefront, and the same, that has not changed because the same amount of space is still allocated for those specific uses. We're making this more, we believe that we have a game plan that will bring this to the market faster because we're removing all the obstacles for those end users.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need one clarifying question, please.
Ma'am.
So you said that the utilities are going to be built out there, and then if a commercial business comes, then they have to apply for the permits, the building permits. So are they building their own part of this? I don't understand. Are they building their own store on your base? I'm confused by that.
Sure, with the approach that we're taking, they would have that option. Otherwise, they might have to sit and wait for a commercial developer to come and do all that for them. In this case, we're opening up the opportunity that those individual users could do that, which is a more accomplishable task.
Have you seen this done before?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long does it take to build out for interested parties? Just on average, based on your experience, how long does it take for businesses to start coming if they have to build their own storefronts?
Sure. So in a situation like this, I believe that once we have this zoning in place, now all of a sudden this property can be marketed as zone space where we will know what is the timeline at which they'll have utilities. We'll know what is the timeline at which they'll have the road improvements in place. We're saying that we'll have that done by the end of our first phase. So then we've just eliminated multiple years out of their process. So they can now start to plan. For example, they could say, 2 years from now, we're going to be ready to submit our building permit so that we can come to market immediately, as opposed to having to wait to extend utilities, as opposed to having to wait to do road improvements, as opposed to wait to get a site pad ready.
So based on your experience, on average, how long has it taken for businesses to start coming to these towns where you have built this model?
Based on my experience, I would say it typically takes from where that piece of property is right now until a commercial site could be open for service would be about 4 years. By the time you get through the zoning process, the site planning process, the construction drawing process, do the on-site development, and then apply for a building permit. So that's just going through the processes that are in place in the town of Rolesville. That would take about 4 years to do all that and then build the building. We're trying to take 2 years out of that process so that those properties, so that portion of the property can come to fruition as fast as possible.
I have another question.
And if I can throw in one other piece of that, the residential would probably be coming online within about 2 years, which is then putting in all that infrastructure so that the commercial could start immediately and have whoever it is, customers, patients, the like, being serviced from that commercial at that point.
I have a question after Sheila.
Think,
This is Commissioner Sutton.
Commissioner Sutton has
More
a
question. So that's great that you're telling us this now, but we asked for a plan. So to me, all this, and you have a great background from what you described. You were a commercial developer, right? So all the more reason, I would have expected like a one-page report on these factors and some samples of where it's been done. And I don't understand why we don't have that when we were here 30 days ago and that's what we asked for. To me, that would support your case instead of you just kind of giving us anecdotal answers tonight.
I'm sorry that we didn't accomplish what your goal was. We did meet with staff. We explained what it was that we were going to be presenting tonight. We thought that creating a plan that would bring the commercial to fruition is what was asked for. We believe that we had done that.
Plans change all the time. Are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done. That was my question.
I just have a question. You may have answered it, and I may have not comprehended that. Why not just take ownership of this project yourself? You know, this development, as you're building your residential, why not take ownership of the commercial? There's going to be enough residential out there. This is not the only development out there.
Sure.
There are several developments that are already taking place there, so there will be residential, because I think you had mentioned something about commercial not wanting to come where there's no residential, but there's plenty on that road.
We would agree, and the obstacle to getting that commercial there right now is it doesn't have utilities, and it has a large amount of traffic improvements that go along with it. So we want to take control of those things and bring that to that site, so the commercial that wants to be there can be there.
Right, so I'm not making the connection. If that's what you're bringing to the site, why not follow through and start taking on that portion of bringing in the commercial?
Even if you're not building it, but to get a commercial, you are a commercial developer, so I assume you know a lot of other commercial developers, right? Why not own that as far as helping us build out our community? Be a partner with us.
Agreed. I believe that our intent is to own it, to put in the infrastructure so that we can start marketing this to bring in those specific people.
So you are going to market it.
We absolutely.
To me,
market it.
that's the plan that should be before us tonight. Here's my plan. And like I said, I'm getting kind of piecemeal answers right now. And like you said, you shared with the staff, but with the board, we don't have a comprehensive view of the plan.
Yeah, so our intent is to get it commercial ready so that we can then, it can be marketed to bring in the users that probably want to be there now, but can't be. Because the
Marketed
site's not
by
ready.
your organization, though.
It'll be marketed by,
Or your-
it would be done by a third party that does this every day.
Right, for your organization or with
Correct.
your organization.
Correct.
That's what we don't have in writing. This is a meeting where we're just talking, right? Those things are not in writing. So if we walk away from this and say, okay, let's do this, handshake and a prayer, and 2 years later, your homes are built, or your first phase is done, your second phase is started, and you're like, we didn't promise to do that. We forget these meetings.
That's my biggest
So I would have
concern
to
as well.
have that in writing.
Because if you're going to have, you're saying you're going to bring all that infrastructure in, but you're saying that basically post 293 homes. I mean, because you're only saying before the first CO is issued for phase 2, you're going to have the infrastructure in.
Correct.
So it's going to take time to build 181 more homes, or 180. So while that is happening, why not start on that commercial? Give us something to say, this is what we're going to do. We are going to commit to making sure that commercial is there, so by the time that you're done building, we're going to see some commercial over there.
That is our goal as well. What we don't want to do is build commercial we don't want to build a building that then sits vacant.
But yeah, you're saying that, but we don't want the land to stay vacant too, and there's no commercial.
For 12
Agreed.
years.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we don't want to speculate what the commercial would be. We want to find a specific user that wants to be there. Because if you speculate, now you've just limited your pool of who's
course.
going to go there again. We
Of
want to keep
course.
the pool, we want to keep the pool broad as to who would want to be on that site.
How long do you think it's going to build out 293 homes?
Depends.
Just a guess.
I think from right now, 293 homes could be built out in anywhere from 4 to 8 years.
Isn't that time? There's no time in there to get the commercial going?
That's what we're.
No, not the infrastructure. Not the
Not just the
infrastructure. I'm saying an actual structure.
I think this-
Physical.
I think this board is looking for a commitment on the commercial and not asking you to go out and build a building in 2 years, but asking for you to put the effort in to see that commercial comes to that space, partnering with a third-party organization, whatever it takes, but not just building residential and leaving with utilities in place and let whatever happen. Highland Creek took 10 to 12 years. My sister-in-law lives in that neighborhood. I watched it grow. We almost bought a house there, so I know it very well. And I know that there's economic conditions that change the way things are built out. I get that. But what I'm saying is we're asking for a partner in this, not just a builder to build a bunch of homes and then say, see ya.
We believe we are that partner. We would be glad to work with staff to come up with a commitment for us to market that property so that we can get those people there. I would offer that Highland Creek, although the sites on Highland Creek did take probably 8 to 10 years, There was also a considerable amount of commercial that took place across the street that was not there when Highland Creek started. So Highland Creek is a great example of putting in the infrastructure and having it ready to go. It was also competing with a massive amount of other prepared property across the street. This property would not be in that situation. And so I believe this commercial would come to fruition a whole lot faster.
Gotcha. But you see my point of, had you come here with a one-pager kind of laying out what we've just talked about for the last 15 minutes, I think this board would be more amenable to this project. And we just don't have that, especially with your background. Now that you told me that, I'm like, hey.
We would be glad to fashion a commitment to market this property along with the other efforts that we're doing. My apologies. That is something that we would have just inherently been doing regardless, and we're glad to put that in words.
Definitely want that in writing. That would be great.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Clarifying questions based upon the conditions that are in the text of the staff report versus the testimony that I've heard. There has been testimony that the improvements will be made. However, the condition is that they will be made or they will be bonded off or a fee in lieu will be paid. Is the commitment that the improvements are going to be made, or is it that they'll be made or they'll be bonded off?
The current commitment is that they would be made or that they would be bonded, because sometimes the processes that are placed on us require some bonding, and so we didn't want to get backed into a corner where we didn't at least have that option.
And it's my understanding that the town would, is seeking to avoid fee in lieu in bonding circumstances, just staff resources and consumption. And that had been the testimony that that work was going to get done. So take that for what it's worth.
We would be glad to tonight eliminate the bonding requirement and say that the improvements will be completed.
And the same for the fee in lieu with regard, okay. There was, the commitment points out that there will be utilities brought to the perimeter of the site, although the testimony I heard was a pad-ready site, which want to make sure that, are we doing anything on the site?
I would use those two words interchangeably, meaning utilities to the site does make it pad-ready, it's ready to go. This is currently a farm field, so it's just sitting there ready for somebody.
Okay, but no on-site work, no pad, no compaction, nothing like that?
No, because that work's already complete. Meaning it's already a cleared site that's sitting there vacant. It's not a treed site that would need that level of activity.
And the fourth was a testimony from Mr. Carpenter about the affordable units being of the same style and size. I think identical was the term, but that is not part of the commitment currently.
That is also, I affirm what Mr. Carpenter said. We would build the exact, from the street, it would be the exact same unit as what's being built everywhere throughout the community. It would be similar.
And then the final piece is that it had come to my attention, and I'll confirm that this was true. So this is a question that is being asked. Mr. Carpenter can object if he'd like. Is it true that the non-residential sites are not being conveyed to Pulte and they're being retained by the underlying owner?
Correct. They're being retained by currently by an underlying commercial developer. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So wait a minute, how do you speak on behalf of that developer?
Yeah, that's the next question. I'm like, wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
I would need to let my attorney answer that
It
question.
seems like everything is being passed off, and if you go back and ask the people who live in the villages at Rolesville, where's our commercial? It's been like 17, 18 years. So I think that's the concern that we have. But I am interested in hearing how you're putting it off to a third party, and they're not here to speak on it.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thales was part of the application, and they signed the application and joined in it. So they know what's going on, and
What does
they're
that,
party
what
to
does
the
that
case.
mean? Explain it. I'm not an attorney, so I need it in like real layperson's terms.
A lot of the zoning cases you see, the developer that is presenting the case doesn't own it yet. So it's the same thing here, except, Pulte's not under contract for that portion. So Thales it's not to say that we couldn't work with them, like Chris was mentioning, and market the commercial area. We could. but they own it right now, but they're a party to the rezoning application.
That sounds convoluted to me.
I think I'm ready to move on.
That sounds convoluted. Dave, how does that work?
So the applicant is not Pulte, technically. The applicant is the owner. The owner currently owns all of the underlying land. Pulte is under contract, we understand, to purchase the residential pieces of it. So Thales has designated Mr. Carpenter to speak on behalf of the owner. But it's Pulte who cares about the residential piece. And I thought it would be helpful for you all to understand why there was some hesitancy to be making commitments beyond perhaps what the authority of the witnesses could give us.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, that's a no for me. I can't do that.
All right, Ronnie, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from the board?
Well, that was a fun exercise.
No, not hearing any. Dave?
I think I have a little statement, not even a question. Because,
We'll get to that.
okay.
I think staff is good on this. When we take it back to the board, I may have additional comments.
Okay.
So can I make a comment? Is that what you're saying, or we're going to Ronnie?
So we've heard from staff, we've heard from attorney. All questions was answered from evidentiary witnesses. So I am prepared to close this evidentiary hearing. And once it's closed, I'm going to turn it over to this board to deliberate and receive a motion. Are we ready to do that, board?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will close the evidentiary hearing. And board, I'll turn it over to you, and I'm looking for a motion.
I just don't know how to make the motion. I never know how to make the motion.
So would the motion be to deny the special, would be to deny, approve? Excuse me?
I think you want to do it in a positive manner.
Okay,
The
well,
attorney
I'm
said you could do it
positive.
either way.
All right. So these are our choices right here.
Where are the choices?
Would you like me to walk through the choices?
Yes, please do, and I'll make the motion. Walk me through it.
Sure. So the board can find that all of the findings have been met, in which case the board must vote yes. The board may determine that one or more of the findings have not been met, but could be met by imposing a condition upon the approval. And if the board chooses to do that, then the board would vote yes. And if the board determines that they have not met the conditions, they have not met the findings, and the conditions either that have been proposed or the ones that you can conceive of are insufficient, then the board must vote no.
Okay, so based on what you said, and do I have to say this as a motion, or just say that I feel like the conditions have not been met within the findings of fact?
So the board's practice in the past has been to have discussion before a motion, which is then followed by deliberation. I don't know if that's the sentiment of the board today, to see where folks are, what conditions might be in contemplation, which could help you in formulating a motion. Keep in mind that you also have the deviations, so you could approve the special use permit in whatever form you deem appropriate, and approve all, some, or none of the requested deviations, as the deviations have their own standard, which is that the particular features of the property in the plan are such that mathematical precision to the underlying standards would be unreasonable.
All right, so I hear what you just said, but I feel like we're piecemealing this from a month ago to tonight to, okay, some have been made, some have not been made, and can accept this, but need to work on that. Is it possible to say it has not been met, and for the things that we have agreed to, and staff was here to record that, just bring it back like we're asking, bring it back based on what the request has been of the board.
If the question is, what should the form of the motion be? If you make a motion in the affirmative to approve with the conditions as submitted, as adjusted by the additional commitments that have been made in clarifying tonight, you would have a motion on the table. You would not need to recite each condition or use any particular magic language. That would be sufficient to place the motion before the board. The board could vote. If the board votes yes, then I will work with the applicant's attorney to prepare a final order that comes back usually on consent agenda at our next meeting, which has all the wordsmithing worked out, including the adjustments that were here. Or if there were additional conditions that were imposed, we would add those to the order.
Okay, so
But you added the snafu at the end of they don't own the commercial portion of the land.
That's the whole
So that
thing.
just kind of blew up our whole discussion.
The applicant is Thales. Thales owns the entire property.
So that's.
But, and that's what my confusion.
The applicant, Pulte is who you've heard from, but
Yeah.
their attorney is Mr. Carpenter, who is here and is authorized, and I think it's been represented to us that Pulte is authorized to speak for Thales.
But you know what, though? Okay. I personally feel, and I may have missed something, that going through all this to get to this point to realize the person who can really make decisions about the commercial is not here. What was that, an hour or 40 minutes? I feel like that part should have been, maybe it's on me, I should have saw that. And maybe I didn't. But I feel like it should have been expressed because after all of this, there's a third party.
Certainly, every applicant makes their own choices how they wish to present their case. The only question before you is whether they've met the findings.
Do you
And
want me
that's
to make
the
the
standard.
motion? Do you want me to make the
Please
motion?
do.
Okay.
I hope it's the one I'm thinking of.
I make a motion, I'm just going to read it here. If I need to something corrected, tell me. I make a motion to deny the special use permit based on the information presented at the evidentiary hearing with the stated reason for denial. Do you need me to list the 3 reasons?
For any, if in the event of a denial, you would have to reference the findings that have not been met.
Okay, findings of fact that have not been met, or is D, that the proposed development and/or use will generally conform with the comprehensive plan and other official plans adopted by the town. Also F, the proposed development and/or use will not cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard. And that's based on the fact that we're looking at outdated information from 2017, 2018 on the TIA. And then G, that the proposed development and use comply with all applicable requirements of this ordinance. There is no written commercial plan, and the applicant does not own the commercial land in question.
And I second that.
Okay, board, I have a motion to deny based on reasons given by Commissioner Sutton, and I have a second to that motion. Is any other discussion? Not hearing it. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Not hearing any. The motion carries to deny the permit. Thank you, board. Appreciate that. Next item we have is public hearing on the fiscal year of 2022-2023 budget. And I think that's Amy, that is you that will be doing that.
Remember I said I had a statement? I'm sorry, Ronnie, I'm sorry to cut you off there.
okay.
Remember I said I had a statement? My statement is this, and I put it all on me. But when we have a case like this where there's these different parties involved, I think it really helps to bring that to light at the beginning. Does that fall on me? Did I miss that?
That information is in the application. Thales signed the application.
Right, they did sign that, but even to have this conversation continue on with him not, with Thales not here, I get that's their right, but I feel like it took us an hour and 40 minutes to hit on that. And to realize, we're still going back and forth with the commercial, but to hit on, well, that person's not even here. Even though he has somebody legally here to represent him, I just felt like the other party couldn't even give an answer. as to, well, we have a third party that's going to take care of that. We're going to market this. There's no saying that Daly's was going to be in agreement to that, or am I missing that part as well?
Commissioner Medley, my advice would be that we've made a decision on this, and we should move on.
Okay, so that was my statement. Remember I said I was going to do that. Okay, thank you.
Statement in the form of a question.
Yeah, it's going to get answered one way or another, but it's done and it's over, okay?
All right, yeah, I was going to bring that up. Before we bring Amy up, how long you think you're going to take?
It'll be similar to the presentation
Yeah.
we had before, but abbreviated.
Okay, well, let's take a break. Let's take, I got 8:45 by that clock. Let's say 8:55? Is that good for everybody? Yes, sir. 8:55? Thank you. So we're on break. Appreciate it.
All right, so ready, I'll return.
board meeting. The item on our agenda is budget consideration, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Amy, to lead us in that.
Good, thank you, Mayor. So the first part of this will be a review of budget presentation for the members of our public, and then there'll be a granted opportunity during the public hearing to present their comments. Just a preview for the next item after that would then be the board's potential consideration or decision about what to do next. All right, so at your previous meeting on April 19th, the town manager presented you with a balanced budget for fiscal year 22-23, beginning on July 1 of 2022. A reminder, we sort of gave a theme to this year's budget. This year's theme is taking stock. We made a lot of changes last year, a lot of management level personnel, learned about some new processes, stormwater management, embarked on planning for some large capital projects. So this budget is a year for us to take a breath, normalize these big changes, assess our operations for going forward while we prepare for that coming growth that continues to come in this area. A reminder, strategic plan is the basis for our entire budget presentation. You've updated that for 22 to 24 time period at your work session a little earlier this year. And so as you see, as we go through this, we're really trying to make those linkages between your strategic plan about what you want to accomplish in this community and how we're carrying that out through this budget. Those connections are being made with these little green circles that correlate to the goals that you have outlined in your strategic plan. So I encourage you to look for those as we go through the presentation. This is a very high-level overview, budget history, comparing the current year we're in, 21-22, to this proposed budget for 22-23. We do budget two funds, generally, as part of the budget process. One is the general fund. That contains most of your operating expenditures. That's what provides funds for the police department, the planning department, administration, parks, recreation, et cetera. The other fund is the capital projects fund. That's where we budget those very large, multi-year capital projects, what I like to call asphalt, bricks, and concrete. Okay, the things that typically we can't finish in 1 year. As you can see, the general fund does have a slight increase, 2.8%. Some of those capital fund contributions do kind of mess with that percentage growth, but 2.8% for the general fund. And then the capital projects fund is down slightly. That has to do with some extra capital projects we had last year that are not in this year's appropriation. But narrowing in a little bit more on that general fund, because that is your important operating revenue or operating fund. And we'll start here with the revenues in the proposed budget. Just a couple of things to point out here. Ad valorem taxes or property taxes, remains your largest source of revenue, over half of your revenue for operating expenditures. Wake County does bill and collect that on your behalf, and they are estimating a 6.2% growth in property valuation. They do also typically have, as we mentioned a little earlier tonight, over a 99% collection rate. So they have a highly successful property revenue department for Wake County, making sure that you get all of that levy that you assess. The second largest source of revenue you see on this chart is taxes and licenses. The biggest component of that is sales tax revenue. Again, we mentioned that earlier tonight. Because we have those data points, we don't have a lot of those data points with the new census numbers, we are taking a conservative tact with that in terms of revenue growth. We're projecting 4% growth for that for next year. On the expenditure side for your operating budget, there's a lot of categories here. The big thing to take away is public safety is your largest group of expenditures. That's the combination of police and fire. Together, they are 38% of your operating expenditures. Your next largest group really is your public works and solid waste, also another direct service to citizens. That's the next largest category of expenditures.
Amy, I have a question. On the police and fire, that 38% total, how does that compare to other municipalities our size? I feel like you've answered this before, but I don't remember.
I think we did this last year too. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the details. I
Right.
do remember a lot of pie charts where they were all very similar to these. Yeah.
Just curious.
Now ours is a little different. You know, we're not funding the entire fire department.
Right.
We're funding the cost share percentage. So that does account for some fluctuations there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so a little bit more in detail on the revenue highlights. This proposed budget does maintain the property tax rate at 46 cents, so no change from the current year. And the solid waste fee, $22 per month, that is billed on the property tax, also proposes no change. When you do get ready to adopt your budget ordinance, you adopt the schedule of fees at the same time. That schedule of fees does have a few proposed amendments within it. Most of these are development related. And I won't go through all of those, but they are generally updates related to your new LDO. And then there is one additional amendment related to recreation sponsors. If someone sponsors 5 or more teams in a season, they would receive a 10% discount. Okay, so on the expenditure side, a little bit more detail. Again, we're still in the general fund. The largest expenditure you have in your operating fund, kind of stepping outside departments and looking at that pie in a different way, the largest expenditure you have is your employees. That accounts for over $5 million of your $12 million general fund. That's over 40% of that fund. Pays for employees and their benefits. So only one new position is proposed in this budget. It is a communications specialist position. It is proposed as a part-time position, but would be benefited. The thought is that this position would eventually evolve into a full-time position as the needs of the organization and the community grow. On the pay and benefits side, we are proposing a 3-step plan to employee pay. We contracted with company PTRC to conduct a pay study earlier this year, and they have made certain recommendations in terms of regrading quite a number of positions in your pay and classification plan. And so we are recommending that those position adjustments be made as recommended by the consultant. That's step 1. Generally no employee changes or no employee pay effect would come from that pay study. It just moves the positions to the new pay grades, but no change to employee salary unless they're below the new minimum, but generally no change. The second step is what we're calling a market adjustment, or some people call cost of living. It will be a 5% increase to employees on July 1 of 2022. And then the third step would be the continuation of our performance pay program, so that high-performing employees would be eligible for up to 2% additional pay increase in November of 2022. Overall, there is no insurance premium increases in this budget. We've done well, and our provider has provided a good proposal to us that continues our benefits as is, no decrease in coverage, but premiums pretty much stay steady. And as we have talked about for the last several years, there is an increase in that retirement system contribution, right, for the state retirement system. So that is mandated by the retirement system. And that increase for the retirement system contribution, as usual, is about $30,000 for the past several years, and $30,000 again this year. Okay, so now let's move into some of the highlights in the department areas. This group is...
Before you move into that, how many employees do we have now? Total, full-time and part-time?
So, well...
or contract?
Let's call them benefited positions.
Okay.
Okay? If you want to talk about benefited positions currently, It's 46.5. Okay, so 46 full-time and 1 half-time. In the proposed budget, it's an equivalent of 47 positions, right? So 46 full-time, and now you have 2 half-times, which add up to the, so as I like to call it, it's 47 FTEs or full-time equivalents, but I always count heads, and so it's 48 heads.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. And then as far as those part-time, the temporary positions, the non-benefited, that can fluctuate based upon seasonal needs. That's why that one's hard to answer.
When we went to the City Vision Conference, there were several towns that were talking about their staff size. We're way under. I'll just say that. I'll give y'all some numbers later. We're way under. Thanks, Amy.
Okay, so hitting some of the highlights. General government includes administration, finance, HR. What we're looking at here are some upgrades for the chamber AV, customer service survey, some software, and then some additional training and auditor costs, which we've already also looked at tonight as well. And I'm not going to go through these in detail, so if something you want some more information, just jump in. The second group of departments we want to look at is development services. This is generally the planning department and the community and economic development department. It's time to update the comprehensive land use plan. Last update was in 2017. This is sort of a minor look at it, not a wholesale revision, but it is time to update that. There's been a lot of talk about traffic, so we're proposing a traffic study for the Averett, Young, and Rolesville Road corridor. More software, and then obviously we're continuing some of our work with the Chamber of Commerce and the support for that, as well as the growth of a development association for the downtown area.
Amy, these are proposed for this year, right? The corridor traffic study is being proposed for this year.
Proposed for the 22-23
Yes.
year, so starting July 1. Okay, next category, public safety. This is police and your fire RRFD cost share, or the Rural Fire Department cost share. Police Department has funds in the budget for an organizational assessment to determine what the growth should look like over the next 3 to 5 years in terms of personnel, programs, et cetera. And then they've got several important equipment replacements that are planned for this budget as well.
Are they using the same people we used for the larger organizational study? Do you know? Or it hasn't been determined? Just curious.
To be determined.
She was really good.
Yeah, we've got a proposal from her. That's how we base our costs, but we'll probably do an RFP just to check in.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
On the fire department side, this is a budget that is developed jointly with Wake County. As Commissioner Sneed mentioned earlier, part of the unification efforts, they did invite me to be part of that budget process, which I greatly appreciated. I learned a lot. But this is a budget that is jointly developed with Wake County, the Rolesville Rural Fire Department, and now the town of Rolesville. That budget includes an additional position of a battalion chief to provide daytime supervision at the station. And then they have quite a bit of small equipment replacement as well. Public Works, more software. Mentioned stormwater earlier. We're going to continue working on developing a maintenance plan for our stormwater system. They also have some equipment replacement. And in terms of street maintenance, we're going to try something a little new, which is a crack seal program. Rather than going with full-out resurfacing, it's trying to get the cracks filled. I'm using very layman's terms here. Filling in the cracks, so it helped make the streets last longer, and so you don't need to resurface them quite as soon. And then, as we'll have in some future agendas, the contracts with our current vendors for garbage and yard waste anticipated to continue.
I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
To the crack seal program. So a couple of years ago, when we did that study, some of the roads needed more than just sealing. So where does that fall at in here?
So that's been part of the goal here, is to hit those top roads. Old Town, for example, had a lot of those, and that was in this year we're just finishing up. So I think we've hit a lot of those big roads that are at the top of the list that really needed to be addressed. I think some of the other ones that were at the top are spread out throughout the town, and so we thought this might be a good approach to address that. I don't know if, Eric, if you want to add anything else.
If you have specific areas, Michelle, just let me know, and Eric can then get back to you and let you know how they are evaluated, where they are on the rating.
No, it's, just real quick, because over at the park, remember that video I showed you where the guy did the, look at that little flying thing that you can.
Drone.
Drone.
John, remember we were looking at the video at my office and
Is
it
your mic
all
on?
over the place?
Yeah.
Michelle, is your mic on? She said she can't hear you.
Sorry, it isn't. Do I need to repeat myself?
Actually, so that is a good example. That is Redford?
Yes.
Redford. So that is our top, most needed road to be improved, particularly as it enters into Virginia, the subdivision. But in front of you soon is also going to be a development. And we're going to wait for a moment to see what happens with that, because part of what we'll recommend is improving that road if the development comes through.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
A quick question about solid waste. Does that contract run from July 1st on? I know they came back before and asked us for an increase for like the recycling and stuff. Does that?
I believe the GFL contract to continue with them, I believe it was a 3-year contract.
Okay.
3 years.
In terms of the yard waste vendor, we're choosing to exercise an additional year on the existing contract as permitted by that contract.
Okay.
And
Thank
you'll
you.
see both of those in your June meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And then also on the operations side is Parks and Recreation. In terms of operations, additional funding for community events, continue at the 4th of July, and costs associated with that, as well as some new programming expected as well. And then they finally have a continued multi-year project for replacement of signage at the parks, as well as along the greenways. So that's the operating budget, which is mainly the general fund. I want to transition now into the other fund, the capital projects fund, which again, it's the asphalt, bricks, and concrete, multi-year projects. These are typically adopted using a capital project ordinance. So when you authorize those funds stay in place until the project is complete. Unlike the general fund, you appropriate those funds and the money disappears June 30th. There's no more appropriation. When it comes to these CIP projects, it stays in place until you do something else. So before I go into what the new budget is, I just want to take a moment, review quickly the ones that you currently have in place that are continuing. And that is the East Young Street sidewalk, that's that 401 pedestrian crossing. Then we've got 2 things here with the Main Street corridor, both the design as well as the construction using the LAP grant. There is funds appropriated for Granite Falls Boulevard build-out for the design phase of that. Future parkland, the Redford Place Park lights replacement, and then finally you have some obligations under the Cobblestone Economic Development Agreement, and we have funds set aside so that you can meet those obligations. So no new appropriations for these, but the work continues to go on.
But the LAP project, is that the total? That's the total, because we're not donating that much. We're not putting that much.
No, that is the total. That includes Walbrook's portion, that includes the grant funds, that is the whole thing.
That's a little confusing though to look at,
It-
because
it
it looks
is.
like we're putting $10 million into that.
It doesn't show the revenue.
It is, but because it's a reimbursement grant,
Right.
we have to pay for it up front. We have to have that budget appropriation so that we can legally appropriate and
I
pay
got
the
you.
checks.
If I was a citizen looking at this though, I would think, oh, they're
Right.
spending 10 million, 12 million, the design and that,
Right.
over 12 million on that project. So yeah,
Right, but a significant portion is grants.
got you. So that's the total, not all the town's money being spent there.
20%.
That's right.
20% is taken, I think.
Okay, so this is what you've already approved, but now let's talk about what's in the new budget. We have worked over the past 10 months or so on creating this CIP model with our associates at Davenport. Seen this many times, but this is a fundable CIP based on the revenues that are available. So when we put together this proposed budget, we were using this model as the base. So there is additional funds in the budget for the Public Works facility. You previously budgeted 1.4 million. This budget adds another you previously budgeted 1.6. This adds another 1.4 million. Right now, it is in the budget as a loan installment finance to pay for this, but it is staff's recommendation that we use the ARPA funds to pay for this facility. We're going to adopt the budget as a loan because we don't actually have that money in hand yet. We haven't checked all the boxes and done the policies and appropriated the grant and that sort of thing. So when that happens, then there'll be an amendment to turn this into the use of the ARPA funds for you to consider that.
Question, so there'll be a use of ARPA funds as well as us taking the other 300,000 to pay off?
That's right. That's right. Okay, and the other, another project in here is the municipal complex. There's $450,000 set aside for site acquisition and design, early design of that municipal complex site. That's an important first step to make sure that things are ready for a Wake County library to go into that site.
Site acquisition, haven't we already acquired the site?
There is one parcel that remains to be acquired.
Oh, there is?
In the back there that the lady owned, that was falling apart, right? That one?
Wait, isn't this where the library? There's a house there too?
It's 1 of the 3. We got 2 of them.
Next project is Rogers Road, the Willoughby second entrance. The town accepted a fee in lieu from the developer instead of the developer putting in that second entrance. So it is up to the town to spend that fee in lieu. The fee in lieu covers most of the cost, not quite. The balance is being taken from street fees. Construction is expected this summer.
What was the balance?
Oh, let's see.
The balance we were going to want to know, Amy.
Yep, I know, I got it here. So the total project is $420,000. The street fee in lieu was $358,000.
Oh, okay.
So it covers most of it.
Right, gotcha. Okay.
The other project budgeted here is the community center. You've previously budgeted $400,000, so there's an additional $7.5 million for a total budget $7.9 million. We are expecting installment finance in order to build that, or debt on that building. And the construction is expected to begin summer of 2023. Okay, so that is a brief overview of your general fund operating budget, your capital projects fund capital project. And so, Mayor, I turn it back to you.
Okay.
May I add 2 more comments real fast, if you don't mind? Just recent information?
Staff comments?
Staff comments.
Yep.
So the most recent survey of pay increases in Wake County that's being proposed, we are at or just a little bit above most all the agencies. So I think I still think that's a very appropriate recommendation. But most everybody's about 4 to 5%. It feels like is where they stand. Also, I want to make sure you saw that the recommended county budget includes 1.5 cent increase in property tax. So we just want to remember that. If they adopt that, there will be a tax increase for all Wake County residents of 1.5%, 1.5 cents.
Can you say that again louder for the public to hear that?
Sure. So the recommended budget that the county is considering has not been adopted yet, but is considering includes a recommendation of 1 penny, 1.5 penny increase in property tax.
Wake County is doing that, though?
Yes.
Not the town of Rolesville?
Not the town of Rolesville.
Just clarifying. Thank you, Kelly.
Any others?
That is it.
Okay. Well, thank you, staff. Good report. So I'm going to open up the public hearing. I do think we have a couple to speak. Where's my sheet at? First is distinguished Derek Vestigian. Come up. We don't know who you are, so state your name, address, affiliation, other than the Rolesville Rams.
I thought he had a seat up here somewhere. I see him all the time, right?
Well, you know.
And 3 minutes. And
Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, I know.
Dan is on it.
Yeah, so my name is Derek Verstegen, 414 Virginia Water Drive in Rolesville. So I wanted to basically just start with saying that I understand there's a lot of things that to consider when putting together a budget for a town, and to cut to the chase and slice through all the justifications for the budget presented tonight. I know it'll be said, well, Derek, over the course of the next 5 budget cycles, Parks and Recreation is actually getting more money than other capital expenditure projects. And that's obviously true by about $125,000, but aside from the 3-year gap where 0 funds are being allocated, Parks and Recreation has and continues to rely on funding from impact fees. A recent consultant hired by the town has warned that is not a sustainable solution. I asked for a document to be passed around to you that shows just how little the town has invested in the Parks and Recreation system over 30 years. If you don't have that, I can make sure you get it. It's the Appendix B, and if you want to review it, we can, but that'll impede on my 3 minutes, so I'd like to skip over that, and then you can ask questions afterwards.
Appendix B?
Appendix A.
A, okay.
Yeah, sorry. If I said B, I apologize. In short, the town has invested an unimpressive $5 million in the park system over the past 30 years. What I really want you to think about, what I urge you to understand, is the town of Rolesville is not a commercial developer. We cannot sit here and think like them when it comes to land acquisition. Developers look at property with the knowledge they are going to turn it around for a profit in a given amount of time as they develop and sell homes or lease space. We are not in the same game. To make profit off the land we buy. Our profits from park and recreation land acquisition is not monetary, it is humanitarian. I am never going to take away the needs of police, fire, and municipal buildings, but those type of investments can happen at any time on any property. Whether you use an undeveloped lot, a tear down or rebuild or renovate, it just doesn't matter. But parks and recreations, particularly the former, require virgin land 99% of the time. You can't buy land and plant mature trees in a week and suddenly have yourself a park. We have to make it a priority to purchase land for park and recreation use, even if it takes 5 to 10 years to activate it. Therefore, I respectfully ask the board to amend this budget and include capital improvement project funds allocated for park land use acquisition in the amount of at least $500,000 for each of the years that there is no money allocated. This will allow the Parks and Recreation staff to continue to work with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to explore how and where we can stand or we can stop suffocating our current resources and better serve the current and future residents of Rolesville. And let me make one last point to remind you of the strategic plan statement that was already shared with you tonight. Genuine community thrives in Rolesville as we seek to build a place that is focused on walkable and with connections to parks, greenways, and gathering spaces. Let's not lose sight of that vision, please. So, would you like to review anything in Appendix A as far as what that goes and what that's trying to represent and illustrate? Or do you think it's pretty straightforward the way it's laid out? No?
Was this a conversation you had had with me before when you said when the money's not used, it's moved?
That's in the general fund. In the general fund, that's been the case for the comprehensive plan for Parks and Greenway. That had been planned for 3 years in a row and then was never used for it. And then there was a year where there was no funding, and then we finally got thrown in with the transportation plan. So that money kind of got reallocated to Fraser Farm projects. That's general fund, but I'm specifically tonight talking about capital improvement projects as illustrated earlier, $550,000. We need to keep money in there every single year so that it builds 500,000, 1 million, 1.5, 2, so that we can always have the ability to purchase land rather than trying to snake it away from developers and pick off little pieces here and there or get lucky in one way or shape or form. We already just don't have enough parkland as it is.
I just have a clarifying question.
Yes.
You're only talking about parks? Just clarifying.
I'm talking about park acquisition, park land acquisition.
Park land acquisition.
Park land acquisition.
Not parks and recreation. I just want to clarify.
I'm not sure what needs to be clarified. I'm just talking about park
land acquisition.
To be used for parks and recreation, yes.
Right.
because recreation takes place in parks, whether it is an athletic park or whether it is a nature park to walk
Not
through.
only in parks, though. That's what I'm clarifying.
Okay, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you. You're talking about the land, though.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
We also got the distinguished Alan Mitchell signed up. I think most of us know you, Alan, but state your name and address for the record.
All right, so if you guys will indulge me, I'm going to read this because otherwise I'll be here for an hour and a half and you only give me 3 minutes.
That's right.
First off, Amy, that was a very good budget. If you ever want to come to the private sector, you can make a lot more money than up here. You call me.
Minutes, Alan.
I will poach, yep.
2 minutes.
No shame.
1 minute left.
Exactly.
And who are you, sir?
And a donation or two, I think.
So it's great to see you guys all today. I'm Alan Mitchell, 616 Pelzer Drive, and even though I have a Wake Forest mailing address, I am a Rolesville resident. And I still don't have a fire department to serve my house. But that's a topic for another day. First, I admire you guys for what you're doing, and I want to commend you. You're doing a great job. This is clearly volunteer work because you're not being paid enough to sit up here and listen to all this all day, every day. So it's definitely volunteer work, but I do thank you and I do appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think. I might change my mind. So now that I'm a town Roseville resident. Anyway, I've been a lifelong resident of Roseville, except for a few years that I went to the Citadel in South Carolina, and I played the corporate game and moved all over this country and all over this world. I've lived pretty much everywhere. Currently, I own 3 different companies here in Roseville. So I'm committed. When I was a kid growing up here in Roseville, some 40 to 50 years ago, yes, I'm old, we started off with just 1 baseball field. 1. At that time, we only fielded 1 Little League baseball team, and we had to play every town within 20 miles just to have a league. Then we added a second field 10 years later. So fast forward to today, so many, many years later, and we've only made it to 3 fields. 4 if you count the middle school. And we don't have any multi-purpose fields. The population of Roseville in 1976, when I was about 8, was only 650 people. We had 1 field. Today, the 2020 census has us at 9,475 people. Is that right, Kelly? That's close.
Thereabouts.
9,475 people. So let me repeat. In 76, we were 650 people. Today, we're 9,475. That's a 1,358% growth. Yet we've only added 1 field. I think this year, and I saw JG left out, but I think this year we've got 800 participants in just the spring Parks and Rec program. 800. That number is somewhere thereabouts. Does that sound right, Paul? So to me, this lack of facility and program offerings for our children was completely unacceptable. So a few years back, as the chairman of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we pushed through an issue to purchase the Fraser Farm, 116-acre tract of land for a very handsome price in 2017. I'll hold back saying we stole it, but you got it at a really good price, especially today's land for 116 acres. So it has some challenges. I agree. You guys have looked at it. It's got some challenges, but no serious goal in life doesn't have challenges. I'm trying to lose weight, and it's loaded with challenges, no pun intended. So I don't know about you guys, but my primary goal in life is safety and security of my family and to provide a future for my family, to build a legacy of sorts. So as the leaders of this community, you should be focused on your children, how to coach and provide for their development and growth. As elected officials, you should be focused on the children of your constituents or the graying of your constituents, Commissioner Sodden. So in the past, the impact fees for new homes specifically designated for Parks and Rec was $2,300, I think, when I was on the board. I think now it's $3,200 per house. So that's $3,200 per home that's going to Parks and Rec. We've built, what, since 2017, 100, 200, maybe 1,000 homes. That's a whole lot of money. So as a businessman, if I charged a customer for something and didn't provide the good of service, I'd be hauled off to jail. Chief Simmons is gone, but they put me in handcuffs if I charge for something I didn't provide, and I feel like that we're not providing that as a town. So I've been extremely disappointed with the town's attention and commitment to the sports complex. And I was even more disappointed with this year's budget. Not the quality of the budget, not what's in it, just the attention towards Parks and Rec, to kind of dovetail on what, Parks and Rec Advisory Board was saying. So I think we need to focus more on delivering for our constituents that you guys have here, and for our youth and for our athletic adults, and provide for them. So I don't think that this budget's your best work. I think it's very detailed, but I think the attention and where you're putting the money is not been placed appropriately. This is for your children, for your constituents' children, for your graying adults. We need to do the right thing and provide facilities and services for them, and we've got the location. We just need to appropriate the money for it. And that's all I have. Did I make it in under 3 minutes?
No.
That was about an hour. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And just for the record, Mitchell Silver said graying. I did not. I was quoting him.
No, and that's right. That's right. The graying.
I was just quoting
the
Mitchell,
graying
though.
adults are more athletic than the non-graying.
Oh,
adults.
no, I understand. Very active population.
We just
I
need
would agree.
somewhere for them to go to exercise.
I would agree.
We got a question for you, Mike. Alan.
Same thing. I answer to both.
His name is
See,
Mike, if you didn't
they
know.
don't know why
His
you're calling me
dad's
Mike,
name
but
was
Yeah.
Mike, yeah.
I'm good.
Without going into like a 30-minute reply,
Oh.
where do you feel that we're coming up short? Because there's other things besides the park, but we are looking into how we can fund the park. So it's not like, I guess Derek said we haven't bought anything in 17 years aside from Fraser Farm. That's a big deal, right? And I'm not being critical or evil or mean. But to you, you're saying we're not paying attention to it, or we're ignoring it, or we could have done better. Last conversation we had, you had mentioned something about a bond.
Absolutely.
Are we really
You
in a
should be running-
position?
You should be running to get a $25 million bond and finish that park. It's going to go up for vote. You can't make the decision yourselves, so it's going to go up for vote. And a bond for Parks and Rec has not failed in Wake County, I don't know if ever.
Well,
And it would be a countywide issue. It's not just for Roseville. Look at all the money that's being spent in Cary and Apex, and their bonds left and right. We're getting nothing in the northern part of the county. We're getting nothing.
okay, you know what? I'm not going to debate that because I know we all want to go home, but you and I will have a conversation. But know that we have other needs. In a $25 million bond, we need policing, right? We're trying to work on our affordable housing.
Absolutely.
We're working on so many different things. So think about how do you
Workforce
justify?
housing. Can we start calling it workforce housing?
Okay, semantics,
Yeah.
but it is.
Yeah.
It's two different things.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
it helps people when they hear workforce
Yeah,
versus
'cause
affordable.
my employees can't live in Roseville.
Okay.
I mean, they
And a
can't-
lot of our police officers and firemen don't, and teachers
that's
don't live in
sad.
Roseville.
That
So
is
I'm just saying, and again, I'm not trying to debate it right now, but we'll debate it, I'm sure. But just think of all the things that we need. How do you prioritize that? So you're going to get $25 million and put it into a park? Or do you build upon other things that you don't have and you continue to work towards that park?
Your public services, police, fire, emergency services is all covered under your general fund, right? And so you're budgeted for that. Where I would like to see us spend money is in Parks and Rec, and that would be covered by a bond, not covered under your general fund. Now, your payback of that would be. But I think it would be money well spent. If I can get kids into athletics, I don't need the police to haul them off because they're going to be energized. They're going to be doing things that are good for them. By the time any of this got built, my kid wouldn't be able to enjoy it anyway. So to me, I
I mean,
don't have
there's
a dog
pros
in
and
the
cons to it. I'm not knocking what you said. I just wanted you to think about that.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Thanks, Alan. You've used up your 3 minutes and
And her
Michelle's
3
3
minutes.
Thank you so much,
We
Alan.
appreciate it. I'm gonna close the
And
public
Derek.
hearing. Board, there's several options here. You can adopt the balanced budget tonight, or we can continue the discussion and adopt the budget at another meeting, but it has to be
Thank you.
adopted by July 1, 2022. Should the board wish to adopt the budget tonight, we can make the motion, adding anything you want to add, move anything you want to remove, but kind of open for suggestions. If you want to think about what you've heard tonight for a meeting or two, we could do that.
Yeah, I don't see what the rush is.
All right, well, let's get it on the agenda let's call it consideration for decision
Because we have a whole
next
other
meeting.
month, right?
No, I think we can,
Yeah.
it will be. It will be June 1 meeting.
Yeah. another
Yeah,
month.
June, first meeting in June.
No later than July 1st. So we have to approve it at the June.
So
should be
I
good.
wanted to add one thing. I would like to see us use that, possibly that $550,000 for parkland as some of the money for the entrance for the farm. I'd really like us to look into that because I think that's a majority of the money we'd need. I think we're in the $600,000 to $800,000 range to get that done. That would get it NCDOT designed and approved and an entrance into that, get it paved and get it to at least to a gravel lot so we could actually activate that farm. So I'd like to see us look into that.
I think we talked, well, you mentioned that
Yeah.
before, and
I'd
you
like to
guys
get-
were going to get some firmer numbers, right?
I'd like to get it in writing though too, yeah. Yeah, I think they're working on firm numbers, but I would like to get that in writing in our budget because I don't want it to,
You want it in the budget?
yeah, I'd like to see that in the budget.
It's in there, you want it designated to
Designated
that.
as, yeah.
Gotcha. So does anybody object to that?
I don't.
We want to get it activated.
I don't object.
All nodding our heads to that before.
All right. And I think, is that the only outstanding issue? I think,
Well, I just think we need to push the budget out more to the public. Now, maybe it comes out more often than I see it, because I'm on the, my Rolesville email. But I just would like to see it be pushed out at least weekly and letting them know we're going to vote on it June 1st. So if they have comments, they have questions, not just say the budget is here, but sometimes we got to educate our public a bit to say, hey, if you have questions, please call the town. Because people don't know that, or I just want to see it pushed more.
yeah, at this point in time, public hearing has been closed, but Kelly and
Right,
and
if they
Amy can
have
answer any questions.
just
anybody
clarifying
has.
questions on
So
stuff.
has it been part of the news blast? A link to the budget?
I know it went out at least once, and it went out several times on social media. It's also posted on the main news feed on the main website.
Yeah.
But we can do some more.
Let's just make sure we put a couple links in the news blast.
Yeah,
so
if we could get it every Friday.
Click on there and go right to it.
Every Friday until adoption, that would probably
Yeah,
be
that
good.
would be good.
Amy, I got a quick question for you. Mr. Mitchell mentioned about the impact fees being $3,200 per home going to Parks and Rec. Could you elaborate?
That sounds right.
He
So,
implied that we misused some funds. Can you clarify?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you said.
so when a builder comes in to put a new home on a lot, one of the fees they have to pay is the impact fee. There's an impact fee for transportation and one for recreation or parks, recreation. I believe 3,200 is right, and I haven't looked at it in a while. Okay, yes, so that is 3,200 for each. We actually have, so we have that capital projects fund that's set up. So whenever we get those fees, they go into special accounts. We are required under state statute to account for those separately. So they don't get mixed in with any general fund monies. They actually go into their own fund, their own line item, and the auditors, as we go through and do the financial statements, we make sure we account for what came in and what we spent of those particular funds.
So they are restricted funds
By
that
statute.
must be used on Parks and Rec as they're collected.
That's right. Our authority to collect those fees actually comes from a local act from the North Carolina General Assembly.
Gotcha.
And we are required to.
But we can't use it on anything else. It has to go towards that.
It has to be for a capital project for Parks and Recreation.
And that's the reason why I asked that question.
We used to get, was it one for water? What was the other one for? And
We
then it
did.
stopped?
We did, since we no longer have the water and sewer system and our debt to the city of Raleigh for the merger has been paid, we ceased to collect that. That's why the number went from the 2,000 whatever, because it was a $6,000 total, right? Give or take 6,000. And so instead of that 6,000 being split between 3 fees, when we stopped collecting water and sewer, we split it between the 2.
How much is it?
Okay.
Somebody asked a question.
Thank you.
Was there a
And
question?
I believe you got
Somebody
directions.
just asked a question.
I did have one thing I wanted to add, and that is because the comment was brought up at the presentation about one of the line items. So we did add some additional funds. It's in your memo. We did take a look at that, and it is probably under budgeted. So there has been one amendment. The budget ordinance you see reflects some additional funds in the governing board budget.
That was for
Just
training.
wanted to point that out.
Training and stuff.
That's right. So
Training
just
and
like your
travel.
city vision, we wanted to make sure you have plenty of funds
Oh,
to
yeah, that
attend
was
that,
very low number.
since it was worthwhile.
Hey, I have a question. So are we going to get the raise like the Wake County Commissioners are asking for? I was just.
I know we raised taxes by 1.5%.
Oh,
you know.
my God.
Gosh,
That's
right?
probably why it went up, isn't it?
Crazy.
No, I got a lot of friends on that board. so
I know,
yeah,
same
did.
here, right?
Appreciate it. Good report, Amy. Thank you very
I
much.
think there was a question from the audience, though, Amy, about how much is now in the fund for Parks and Rec.
So, it's actually in the budget document. Oh, gosh, what did I do? I think
Is
I
that the
went to next page.
1.1 mil?
So it is, I have to find the page. So,
It's in that little circle.
page 81, where we talk about what the fund balance is. See, I knew I should have brought my glasses. I don't know what happened to them. I'm anticipating by the end of this fiscal year, the park fees reserve would be about 1.2 million on June 30th of 2022, based on what we've committed and what we're anticipating to collect.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate that. Sure. Okay, last item on the agenda is discussion of Wake County interlocal agreement to enforce Wake County non-discrimination ordinance. I will kick this off and then punt it to Kelly if he wants to add anything to it. You have documentation in your agenda package, some information on there. I don't know how much the board has been keeping up with that. It's been going on for quite a while. I think Raleigh adopted it last year at some point in time. Wake County adopted a few months ago. I think 2 municipalities have signed on, and 2 have said they are not signing on. 3 has said they'll do something on their own. They're not signing on Wake County. So I think, we got some options either to do that, sign on, take no action, or whatever the board decides to do. So I guess I'll open it up for maybe a little bit of discussion here. Have y'all kept up with it? Do y'all know anything, information about it? Do you have a feeling one way or the other? What are your thoughts on it? Kelly, anything you want to add? I think I hit the high points, I believe.
And Dave's probably just as well versed because he spent a lot of time on the agreement that is in your packet that's being proposed with Wake County. But this is the second time you've seen this. We postponed this discussion a month ago. And it's the same information except with updated on who is adopted and who hasn't adopted. But again, this is the non-discrimination ordinance that Wake County adopted on October 18th, 2021. And then and it's gone into effect in the unincorporated areas of Wake County as of February 1st, 2022. And what they are requesting is if the towns, municipalities would like to have municipalities follow their complaint process, that the municipality would adopt the interlocal agreement that Dave and other town attorneys spent a lot of time with to try and get it to a point where they felt comfortable in recommending it to you as far as the mechanism. Again, you would want to decide if you want to participate in this program, but the mechanism is through the ILA, where you would participate with the Wake County being your contractor for taking complaints, essentially. This was I put as much information I could in this packet. It's the PowerPoint from the county that presents information, their ordinance, the reasoning behind it, why they felt it was important, and then also the interlocal agreement is in there. Dave, would you like to add anything in your perspective right now?
The only thing I would add is that, as you may know, this is being driven largely by Wake County Economic Development and the business community associated with Wake County Economic Development and the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce, and are pressing this as an economic development item for Wake County. So that may be the driving force, if you will. Secondly, it is delivered to you today without a recommendation from the town attorney. The agreement before you now is much better than the original draft, and is one that, if the board decided this was something it wanted to do, is one where I would not have grave concerns. But this is not something where I am recommending that you do adopt this.
Yeah, the only thing I think the uncertainty is the future cost.
I was looking at that too. They're gonna charge us.
But I think at any time, we have the option, if we think it's getting too expensive and not being used, not being a benefit, that we can just opt out.
You can, any municipality can leave the interlocal agreement at any time. So there is no restraint in terms of that. You would leave at the end of the fiscal year, presumably.
May I respond to the cost? May I respond to the cost also? So what I know, I have not seen, what I've been told, is the county is going to fund it through 2023, maybe even 2024.
23 or 20?
It's in 20, it's in
saw
the
June 30,
documentation somewhere.
No, they've changed it. They've increased it. They've added another year. So it's actually going to be 24, 23. I don't know. I'll have to ask again. I'm sorry. But they've added another year of offering to pay for it. And then the formula, not adopted yet, but the formula that has been recommended is it's based upon per capita ratio of the participating communities. So the example was, if all Wake County communities participated, Rolesville, Zebulon, and Wendell would have the lowest costs associated with that because we're the smallest communities. But for instance, now that Wake Forest and Holly Springs have said no, that number's been readjusted as far as the number of size participants. So,
And I think Cary Apex is probably, from a standpoint of signing on this agreement, is a no. They're going to say they're going to do their own, I think, which probably won't participate in the cost sharing if they do their own, would they?
I have not verified that, but I would assume that's a good assumption. I think that's a good assumption.
It says Apex and Wendell likely to adopt. Carries the outlier on there.
Wendell did adopt.
They did.
They did last week.
So my question is, why would we not adopt? My concern was cost, and that's been addressed. So my concern is, why wouldn't you adopt it? Like, what am I missing?
Yeah, my question is like, what do we have in place, if anything, right now for this? Like, what's our process if something happens like this?
Currently, there's no prohibition on discrimination that's beyond the Civil Rights Act. This would extend that, and we would have our own local non-discrimination ordinance where individuals could file a complaint regarding a Rolesville person or business. The concern that any town attorney would have is that the legal validity of this is uncertain. The General Assembly had previously prohibited engaging in this sort of activity, but that law sunset. So when that prohibition went away, this movement began. How a court will eventually view the concept of the authority of Wake County to have non-discrimination ordinances is an open legal question. And originally the draft provided that we would all share in the expenses of that litigation, or that we would indemnify the county for any expenses they incurred on a Rolesville complaint, but that has been removed. At this point, the liability of the town would only be if the town were directly named in the lawsuit. The Wake County ordinance is broader than the interlocal agreement. The only teeth, if you will, to the interlocal provision is this conciliation opportunity that comes forward. There is no criminal or civil sanction in the interlocal agreement as there is in the Wake County ordinance.
I have a question. So you said that there was a clause in place that prohibited this, and it's sunset.
Correct.
What was the reasoning behind having that in the first place? Do you have any idea, knowledge on that?
Well, the reasons behind the things that the General Assembly do are beyond the knowledge of your lowly town attorney.
All right.
But you will recall that there were a series of laws passed that became news relating to everything from bathroom bills to non-discrimination ordinances, and they arose in the same setting. As part of the compromise to the bathroom bill, this sort of hanger-on was attached for reasons that you would have to speak to the authors to find out why they had a prohibition on a non-discrimination ordinance for a period of time. So now the question is, do towns have this authority, and do counties have this authority to regulate this issue?
So we could say yes, and then you're saying they could just do an appeal or something and it'd go away anyway?
Correct. If I were to if I had a crystal ball, someone will challenge one of the cities, one of the counties' non-discrimination ordinances. I don't know whether it'll be here or Charlotte or Durham or Wilmington. I don't know. As a lighthearted item,
Yeah.
of course it won't be here because no one discriminates against anyone within the boundaries of the town of Rolesville.
I don't understand why you wouldn't be okay with not discriminating. I'm trying to just think in my head, how does this hurt somebody? So to me, it feels like a no-brainer. Just me, feels like a no-brainer. Why would you not want to have that? Like,
Yeah.
how does it hurt a business?
That's why I was just asking that, because if we have something in place, I don't want to give our power to the county.
Right.
But if we
he
don't
was
have anything in place, then
saying
that's
we don't
different.
have anything.
Currently, if a person were to say that they went into a local business and they felt that they had been discriminated against, they would have rights under federal law and potentially under state law. But there would be nothing at the local level as to that issue.
So this would give them an opportunity to work with the county. Is that correct?
Correct. They would notify the county, and then the county, through its contract with Campbell Law School, would work through a conciliation process, is what they're calling it.
I mean, so it gives us an option. So if they call here and say something, we say, you need to talk to so-and-so at the county level, and they'll take care of it from there.
Here's the form to fill out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a problem. Unless I'm missing something.
The only thing I can answer your question, why, is two communities haven't. And I've not asked why, but.
Two communities, what?
Have not. They've chosen not to adopt this. They've
Yeah,
actually-
I can only speak for one of them, maybe both of them. I think the thought was that it was just a burden on the business, that they already have avenues that they can take, and it's just another burden on the business. But
What was the burden? What's the burden?
the burden is, somebody could use this to
Oh,
file a complaint on a business. I mean, you have a lot of businesses that has, issues with the business. It could be, any business have an issue, and now whoever has that issue has another avenue to go to. So that was the main thing that a couple, I know one of them has said that it had to do with, putting a burden on the business. But I can tell you a couple things. First of all, the big businesses are all for it. The Amazons and the Googles and all those big businesses is all for it. And that's why Greater Chamber of Raleigh and Wake County Economic Development Group, that's why they're so in favor of doing it, because that's what the big businesses want. That's what the large businesses have a desire to have that in the community that they go into. So, when you say it's not good for the businesses, some of the bigger ones are advocating it really heavily. So, it's kind of a complicated situation.
That doesn't make sense to me logically, though. Why would, if any business thought it was going to hurt them, why would they advocate for it? Like the Amazons, or why do you want to bring fire if you feel like that's what it is?
is that,
I think so
the
you can't-
starting
yeah.
point? Do you have to start there when you're bringing suit? Is that maybe what it is?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and that's what some of these ones that has, a lot of it, they think of it as political, some of the big businesses are becoming very political activists, and they kind of see that. But I think to answer, the question that you had, other than what I just said, about, the burden on the business, it's not a lot of other downsides to it. I mean, it's not a lot of other things. I did reach out to the League of Municipalities. They did some kind of questioning of, General Assembly, because, I think one of the bigger towns didn't want to make the General Assembly mad by doing something that they would get upset over. But they don't have an issue. They're not really, General Assembly haven't even took a stance on any of them that's been approved, I guess, throughout the state. So the league doesn't see that happening. There's no downside from the General Assembly politically, anything like that. So, from advice from the League of Municipalities, it's up to the board. It's up to whatever the town, it's whatever you guys feel like, you want to do. Strictly your option.
I could damage your business on Google. I could damage your business on Facebook. I could damage it on LinkedIn. I feel like if it's no cost to us, right? If it's no cost to us, it gives them an avenue to work with the county if there is an issue, and it keeps the town out of it, but it also protects the citizens if there is a concern. I don't have a problem with it, so.
I don't have a problem with it because I see it as it being looked at thoroughly legally to find out if there is actually an issue or not. Am I correct on that? That's what's going to happen. That's what the whole purpose of it is, correct?
The standards that would be employed are not terribly clear because it is a conciliatory process. It's not a legal trial. So how that would be resolved through the Campbell Law School is not clear.
So my question would be, talking before, like if we're not a part of this, so if you have an issue with a business, they would have to bring suit against that business themselves. And the reason why I ask that is if one person has to bring suit against a business, they're going to have a case. But if you have 3 or 4 people that decide they don't like a business and they all file complaints just because they don't like that business, just to keep them tied up to hurt their business. I think that's what you're talking about, hurting business, where you're just complaining about that business over and over again, and it ties them up legally because you have all these complaints now instead of an actual case going against that business. That's the only thing I'd be concerned about. Like, of course, Amazon, they're gonna have people, but like,
The time.
yeah.
So I have a question. So does a decision have to be made now? Or can you wait until after a year and see how it works with those who signed up and then make that decision to
We could
sign up?
ask. We could ask. That's not clear to me. If you choose not to and wait, I mean, there's no reason, there's no immediate action needed anytime soon. I could ask that in the meantime.
I'm curious because
This board can do whatever it wants. It's not required to answer to Wake County's request that you execute the interlocal
I'd rather
agreement.
wait because I think there's still a lot of questions on why this and not knowing that.
Process? The process of what's
Yeah,
going to happen?
exactly. So I think there's a lot to be answered to. So I don't think it's something we should necessarily do at this moment. Ask more questions. Mayor, talk to some more mayors, see what their boards are saying.
You know, thoughts? Well, let's, until we make a confirmed decision, let's keep it on the agenda. So maybe circle back a couple months from now, Kelly. We may know a little bit more. From a legal standpoint, is it done? Y'all's work is done, pretty much?
That appears to be the case. The county was no longer interested in hearing any more wordsmithing of the interlocal agreement. There's a desire to have it be identical for each community, and the county felt that they had heard enough of the whining and crying from the town attorneys.
Yeah.
The motion might be to table this, or you could bring it, a motion to bring it back at a future agenda if you want to do that. But tabling it is something you could do indefinitely.
I mean, this was just on agenda's discussion tonight.
That's right.
anyway,
It was treated tonight as a work session item, so if you tonight say, generally, you give me direction, bring it back in a month or two, I'll do that.
Let's do that, and because, I almost agree a lot with what Sheila's saying. I'm not sure there's much downside to it other than, but, Paul does make sense about
We have no
what if
detail.
somebody target one business, and that's,
You can target them on social media.
Yeah, you're right.
You can target them, it's easier than a lawsuit.
I just think we don't have enough detail.
it's one of them things is, let's,
But I think it makes it, but this would make it worse because this sounds more legal. You're targeting them through the county, and you have, like, if I don't like Michelle's business, and I get 5 friends that don't like Michelle's business.
Listen, don't even
All of
put
a
that in the
sudden-
atmosphere,
Yeah.
Jesus, don't listen.
let's don't get that started.
Yeah, I think we need more details.
Yeah, let's do that, and we'll keep it on the radar
Go
till we,
under discussion.
yeah. And we'll,
Let's wait a
We'll figure.
quarter. It's not worth about.
okay,
Others do.
that sounds good, that sounds good. All right, well, appreciate it. Been a long night. I was supposed to adjourn a few minutes ago, so real quick, communications from the town attorney, anything? We got a closed session, don't we, so?
We do. If that was going to be my attorney report was a request, I believe Commissioner Alston has the form of that motion when we've concluded our other public business.
Right. Kelly, anything real quick from your perspective?
No, I just want to make you aware that Commissioner Alston is not going to be here the next work session
Right.
and requested the town board training rules to be moved and postponed to a June meeting, so you see that on your 3 months schedule. So we do have a couple items for the May 17th meeting, and looking at your June 7th meeting, if this holds, I may suggest you come back, you have a special meeting at 6:30 to talk about the budget, because you do have 3 land use issues that night.
Yeah, I think we probably have come to the conclusion on the budget, my opinion, from hearing everybody, except for the thing on the,
Yeah.
with the parks, that
Right.
Paul says. So, I think if
I'm not clear on the community center yet. I sent some information to you all. Haven't heard back.
yeah, that's just a
Appropriation. Like,
a line item in the budget there, right? Community center.
I'm sorry.
What's in the budget this coming up year for the community center?
Yeah, 7.9's in there.
Amy left.
7.9.
I had to look, make sure, but she said 7.9 tonight.
So the whole thing is in the budget, even if it's not being built. I think she said it has to be in there.
I'll have an answer.
Some tech, I think you're right. I think the whole thing is in there, even though it's a couple of years away, but.
Right. I
It's
think
allotted for.
I'll have an answer tomorrow morning. Sorry.
Okay. We'll figure out. We may need to have some early time. We might talk about it and see what we need to do on that. Anything else, Kelly?
Nope.
Town board, anything from town board? I know we brought up the foundation event coming up, the 5K.
May
Yeah,
14th.
that's pretty good, so,
And Derek. It's outside, Derek.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for our citizens staying so late to talk about, yeah.
That's because they're both dying to speak
The
again.
thorn is still in your side.
yeah. And I think the farmer's market is doing really good. I mean, I see a lot of positives from that. If you haven't visited that, I recommend kind of visiting that. So a lot of good things going on around town. So with that, who has the motion for closed session? All right.
I move that we adjourn and go into closed session at the end of this meeting pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.
Commissioner, I think we're going to need to recess, as you may have to take action back in public session after this closed session.
So sit adjourned.
Move to
Closed
session at the end of this meeting pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.
So it's reset. So we're going to go into recess if there's a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So for the general public, if you want to hang around out in the parking lot, come back. We'll be back in session in a little while.
Run laps, Alan, pretend it's a park.